Okay, we're starting the broadcast. Unless you want to do some musical renditions for us.
I have nothing to add. Just start the damn show.
Okay, all right. Then I shall start. Mosula, Mosula. Yeah, that's no way to start this. Never mind.
And 3 seconds in, and we've already alienated everybody and ruined this entire experience. Thank you, Raf.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. So yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, it looks like there is absolutely nobody in the chat section right now. I'm going to update some of my Facebooks. Sorry, was there dead air there for a moment there, or you just disappeared on me?
You're not saying anything. You're the
Oh,
host of this thing.
right,
Say
right.
hello. Are you gonna start the video?
I'll start it when I feel like it. And when I mean by feel like it, I mean I'm going to start right now.
You're lost without your stupid music and dancing puppets, aren't you? And your flashlights, your damn flashlights. Without that, you're crippled without them.
Damn it! You've seen through my ruse. Here we go. Stream of consciousness. Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you can tell from the title, this is Two Schmucks Reminisce About Godzilla with Raf and Brayton. I am the one and only Raf Enshohma, and joining me for this kind of casual experiment is...
Me, Brayton, I just love this description here. Raf Enshohma and BranzantFiLMS go live to discuss Godzilla and related Godzilla subject matter, like Godzilla. All Godzilla fans are welcome to join, ... in the chat section. So I wonder what we're going to be talking about tonight.
I was thinking that we dedicate this entire show to the 1979 overlooked fantasy movie Arabian Adventure, the unofficial fifth entry into the Kevin Connor fantasy adventure series. Of course, it always gets overlooked because there is no Doug McClure or dinosaurs in it, but there is a scary genie played by the Tor Johnson of British cinema, Milton Reed.
Really? That is,
Yeah.
that I'm sure that is fascinating to somebody out there.
It's fascinating to me. No. We're going to, as the title suggests, we two schmucks are going to reminisce about Godzilla. And I had the word misspelled originally, so that's why there's a big gap after reminisce.
Oh.
Which really shows you the quality of this show. Right now, we may end up going into a slideshow with live screen, and if so, I have tons of Godzilla images are just going to play in the background as we talk. But for the title right now, we're just going to do this. I'm going to alert some people online that we're live. And Brayton, I'm going to have you as sort of the referee for this, so I don't end up going to like chaotic non sequiturs about obscure Godzilla monsters like the Cyclops creature from the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series that appeared in the episode Island of the Forgotten Ships, or was it the what? You're supposed to stop me.
Yeah, I love your, I appreciate your knowledge on these subject matter, Raf, but your Godzilla vlog after King of the Monsters came out was nothing but, oh, look at this big old new monster behemoth. He's a woolly mammoth. And oh, we got a new Methuselah and Skilla or whatever their new names are. I'm sure you know their names by heart already.
No, I don't, because I keep saying them wrong. I know there's Behemoth, Methuselah, and Scully, or I don't know how to say its or her name. The big old spider the squid face spider crab monster.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then of course there's all those new monsters are revealed in the art book, including Kraken, who may have been a Titan that was left out of the final
so
version.
Yeah, we're just here to talk about just random things that come to mind. Gonna try and well, this whole thing is probably gonna end up being one big tangent. So if anyone ever sees this, just be prepared for non-stop non sequiturs. There's really no refereeing the inevitable.
Yeah, well, at least we have you. But you just stopped me a moment ago before I went to like obscure kaiju ephemera.
If you go into Power Rangers at any point, then I'll be sure to cut you right off.
Oh no. I think at this point we can both agree Power Rangers is it's
yes.
Yeah. What's the point? So, all right. And so Braden,
Yeah, Raf.
how'd you get into this thing called kaiju?
It all began with me, a cup of coffee, and a lot of LSD. Actually, not.
Oh, so
Yeah,
your first movie with Godzilla versus the Smog Monster.
no, that was an early one though. Yeah, my first how I got into this all dates back to um well, I don't know. I would have been like maybe 3 or 4, probably 4. But I remember very vividly having a Godzilla 98 action figure, and I still have it. It's the one where like one of his spines you pull back and it like shoots out his mouth opens and shoots out fireballs like a
Mm-hmm.
spring-loaded thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I before I've always as a little kid I liked dinosaurs, I guess, and Godzilla. I saw that toy in the store and thought it was pretty cool, and I got it. And then I found out that it's called Godzilla, and it was based on this movie that is also called Godzilla. And I didn't see any movies for a while, but I went to my grandma's house, who is the wacko weirdo of the family, much like me.
That narrows it
Uh,
down. So
yeah. And I actually saw she had a huge VHS collection of like different horror movies and monster movies. That's where at her house is where I originally saw like the Universal movies. Is she had all those old what were they called? The Universal Classic Collection or whatever,
oh
where it
yes,
had
the
like the
Universal Monster Movies
yeah
Classic Collection. Collect
yeah
all for only the small price of $25.99 each.
yes. So yeah, she had a lot of that stuff, and she also had, oddly enough, Gorgo on VHS. Gorgo is a movie that I mistook as a Godzilla movie because it had that awesome big cover, and I just see, giant green lizard thing. Oh, Godzilla. I know what that is. I have an action
Mm-hmm.
figure. And so my first kaiju movie, giant monster movie, was actually Gorgo. It wasn't Godzilla. It wasn't Kong. It was Gorgo. And
Right.
I fast forwarded to the entertaining bits, as one might imagine. When you're 4 years old, you don't want to sit around with a bunch of Irish people on a boat or English people on a boat for an hour and a half.
Right. That's what the Norwegians say.
Yeah, yeah. My first Godzilla movie, though, after that, I really liked that movie. And the first official Godzilla movie that I saw is my mom went to the video store and rented for me Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah on
Mm-hmm.
VHS. And I saw Ghidorah first, and yeah, that was how that was my first dipping of the toe into the Godzilla pool was that. And I loved it, and watched both of those movies until they had to go back. And then I went back with her to the video store. And yeah, that's where I first saw all of the what is it? I think the company is Scimitar. They released on VHS Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Oh wait, no. Monster Zero, Godzilla's Revenge, Godzilla versus Mothra, and something else I'm forgetting.
Terror of
Terror. Yeah.
Mechagodzilla. And I think they also did no, I think you're right. Oh, the original Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Right, right.
Yeah, I saw all those. Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster, and what else? That was actually it was pretty nice having a video store in town that had this big of a collection of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I didn't really have to go far to find any. Um, and then yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. Going to different video stores. That's where I saw a lot of my earliest Godzilla movies. I didn't own any so much as just renting them from the video store.
Right, right. And
Later the
go on.
later though we found the was it the classic media, the earliest classic media stuff where it was the bad Photoshop cover? Uh,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
the bad Photoshop covers and the most basic versions of these movies you could release on DVD.
Yeah, those were my first ones that I owned, and then I bought. We actually bought some of the VHS tapes from the stores, the video rental stores. Um, so yeah, that was my humble beginnings, my humble roots, if you will. How
Mm-hmm.
about you?
Well, first off, I wanted to note that you are much younger than I am. I was
Oh
born,
yeah,
yes, I was born in 1783. No,
right. Yeah.
no, I was born in 81. We're not going to say what year you were born. But you dealt with kind of the last remnants of Godzilla VHS tapes, because when
Yeah.
Scimitar released their Godzilla movies, they also had the option. You could also have the option of buying them on widescreen DVD. At
Yeah,
least most of them.
and I loved those. I loved the cemetery. Those are the stuff that I watched so many times, and that's why I always call the 64 Mothra versus Godzilla. I always call it Godzilla versus Mothra because that's how it was like labeled under their thing. And it would always start with like the preview trailers for the other movies in the lineup with this awesome narrator guy who would be like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and I'd be like, yeah.
I'm pumped up for this. Give me more.
Yeah, funny thing about that too, I also Godzilla's Revenge I saw before Son of Godzilla or Sea Monster, so that was all new to me. Or Destroy All Monsters too, because they have some stuff from there with
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, it's interesting you should say that, because my introduction to Godzilla was that same package of UPA movies, which of course included Godzilla versus the Thing, or the first Godzilla versus Mothra, Monster Zero, Godzilla's Revenge, Terror Mecha Godzilla, Rodan. There's a movie that kind of gets and the original Godzilla movie and War of the Gargantuas. Those were all kind of released by UPA Pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact history behind these, and if we had Patrick Galvin, the title card would say "Three Schmucks Reminisce about Godzilla."
Yeah.
But as it
was UPA did they have any ties to Henry G. Saperstein? Were they
yes, he was considered Mr. Godzilla here in America, and he was like the biggest supporter and distributor of Godzilla, and he was also one of the driving forces behind the second renaissance of Godzilla entertainment and media in America after the official film series kind of took a break. Without him, there would be no Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, there would be no Marvel Godzilla, there would be no Godzilla Gang, which was just a bizarre Mattel toy series where Godzilla and a bunch of Ultraman monsters are sold together. He may have also been the reason we ended up getting movies like Godzilla 1985, the 1998 Godzilla, and ultimately Legendary Godzilla, even knowing that Yoshimitsu
Yoshimitsu
Thank you. Yoshimitsu Banno was the main driving force that got that film series, the film series are dealing with now. But as far as, but no, it's funny, that package of movies he had, those 7 Godzilla movies, although King of the Monsters may have been so kind of easy to get that it wasn't a part of the UPA package originally. That was an independent production. But those movies aired on a faithful day in New Year's morning, I should say, in 1990.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like most kids, I was big into dinosaurs at the time, and I just loved dinosaurs in all its forms. I remember the Gary Owens, Eric, I forget the name of the other guy, but the Gary Owens hosted dinosaur specials like Sons of Dinosaurs, More Dinosaurs. Which of course was kind of nonsense, because I don't think Gary Owens was really into dinosaurs other than just a general love for it. But it's like, what is it? They go over to they film at like Don Galt's house, who's a writer and producer of low budget movies, and he himself is a huge dinosaur fan. So it's like, this is Gary Owens' house. It's filled with dinosaur ephemera. In real life, Gary Owens he probably had maybe like just the videotapes of the specials.
Gary Owens, he's like an old voiceover guy, right?
Yes, most people today might know him as the original voice of Space Ghost from the animated series.
Space Ghost.
Yeah, of course. Our audience is most likely Generation Xers and Millennials, so I'll just say he was also the voice of Powder Toast Man in Ren and Stimpy. So yeah, he was, and he was also the announcer. That was his character, basically playing himself and laughing. So now let's see what these people are doing. But and there was like tons of other dinosaur documentaries and various movies and all that. And I remember one documentary in particular that would air in the late 80s, or the tail end of the 80s on Discovery Channel, was Hollywood Dinosaurs, hosted by none other than Doug McClure. I'm Doug McClure. You might remember me from such movies as Humanoids from the Deep and Thunderball 2000. So, they would actually have a whole section dedicated to Godzilla movies, although it would just show like black and white footage from Jeter the Three-Headed Dragon and I think colored version from Godzilla vs. Megalon. And as a little kid, you're just kind of gumsmacked or gobsmacked,
Gobsmacked.
gobsmacked. Yes, Godzilla smacked.
Yes.
Yes, from just these insane monster fights that are going on. That looks more like a Saturday morning cartoon brought to life than the big budget fantasy movies of the time. And I was confirmed in that thinking when I finally got a chance to see a Godzilla movie proper, because they were airing it on my local Channel 13 affiliate. It was hosted by a guy in a Michelangelo Ninja Turtle suit. I think that may have been the big draw for my two brothers, who didn't much care for Godzilla, but was just interested to see what Michelangelo had to say about these movies. But they were like the most basic host segments imaginable.
Yeah.
It's like, now let's read the winners of tonight's contest. And before I continue, we have two people in the chat. Riff Witch, better known as Mecha Gragel on DeviantArt. Hello there. And Warrior King Forever, aka Kaiju Duke, who says, I still have some Godzilla VHS tapes hidden in my room, but I haven't watched them in forever. My DVD VH player isn't in great shape. AOL. So hi guys, it's good to have you around.
And War Guy Films says, Doug McClure! Also, Cyborg Man just joined us, but anyway, yes.
Cyborg Man, see him battle Gigan and Megalon.
Cyborg Man. Anyway, yes, let's continue with your first exposure with this stuff.
Okay. So yeah, I was the first movie that was played was Godzilla vs. The Thing, or Godzilla vs. Mothra. I think it was called Godzilla vs. Mothra, but I often have the habit of calling it Godzilla vs. The Thing, just for the heck of it. And I'm going. Oh, hold on. I'm going to do the screen share and just go ahead and do the Godzilla slideshow I talked about.
Oh no.
So yeah, don't worry. This won't be too weird. So there we go. Okay, so where was I? Oh. And of course I can't there. This is ridiculous. I'm so sorry, everybody. I do not multitask well.
Stop multitasking, Raf. Just keep going.
Right. So there was the movie Godzilla vs. Mothra, and it kind of started spectacularly enough with this like really well done model sequence in the flood, and that instantly gets you on board, especially if you're not much of a monster movie fan. But then it's like the story starts kind of strange, because it's about a political business debate over a giant monster egg that just washes on shore. And then suddenly it's ruined by the appearance of it's interrupted by the appearance of two twin fairies on a tree limb who happen to have a giant butterfly or moth looking out in the distance. And then the movie just got weirder and weirder. And it's like, as a little kid growing up in the 80s, I was exposed to a lot of the big budget fantasy fantasy and adventure movies of the time, like the Star Wars films, a lot of the Disney's attempts to get into the business. Return of Oz, like that, and Ghostbusters. And as awesome as those movies are and still remain, they had a weird kind of limitation onto them as far as the fantasy elements go. Like, for example, either the movies took place in their own separated fantasy worlds, far removed from the real world. Tron, for example, I adore that movie, but as far as the real world is concerned, there's no, they don't know anything about the digital world. And while the digital world has some idea what the real world is, and vice versa, movies like The Neverending Story, Return to Oz, or if the movie did have like fantasy melding into the real world, it would be so incredibly brief that would be easily brushed off in the following movie. And I noticed that seems to be the two extremes in 80s films. There's rarely a film where, unless you count like maybe a horror movie where the world is going to hell, there is really no interaction between the real world and the fantastical. I think that's sort of an American need to separate everything, and not to let it meld so well. Here, though, this was a movie where a giant mythical goddess moth and twin fairies on a out of the way island happens to exist in the real world. The government knows about it. The general public knows about it. A giant fire-breathing dinosaur, in this case, thermo-atomic dinosaur, is attacking Tokyo, and it's like treated like an everyday situation.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's like there's Godzilla rampaging across Tokyo in broad daylight with these fairly good special effects. Like don't get me wrong, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was a showstopper in the original Ghostbusters, and it beats Godzilla in many regards in both the model effects and how well it did its suitmation effects. But that was only like five or maybe 9 minutes on screen at most. And not only that, but it's so disappointing when the follow-up movie Ghostbusters 2 basically you don't see often in American fiction, and especially with like competent special effects of that variety. And it just got weirder and more spectacular as it went along. Godzilla versus Monster Zero had the whole alien invasion subplot. War of the Gargantuas was just kind of blew my mind, because it's like, oh my god, what is this? There's a giant octopus movie. I've never seen a giant. Oh my god, where did this green guy come from?
Yeah.
It was, I just instantly fell in love with the genre that day. I actually recorded all but the last movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters. They saved the best for last, basically. And I fell in love with practically all the movies in the series. But I only recorded the first couple of movies, not counting the last movie, because it was New Year's Day and we had to go to a family dinner or something with some aunts we have discommunicated with, thankfully. But yeah, after that, I was just crazy for Godzilla. I wanted more giant monster entertainment. And like you, it wasn't exactly Blockbuster. I originally found a lot of my Godzilla films through.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
Just to say, the video store I went to as a kid wasn't a Blockbuster either. I didn't go to my first Blockbuster until I came over here.
What was your first video store?
I don't even remember the name of it. Like it was some mom and pop video store, like a very local. Like there may have been 2 or 3 stores with this name. I don't even know, or maybe it was just that one. But yeah, none of my family can remember the name of the store, except it was a very tiny. It looked almost like if you were to go into like a bookstore, but for VHS tapes. Like it was a very small, very cramped, like very humble little shop. So yeah, I can remember vividly what it looked like. I don't remember the name of it though. But yeah, that was the thing where I rented all these movies, and there were the Showa movies, like the same 6 or 7 Showa movies I would rent and watch over and over again. And then one day, I remember it's weird. Like I can remember the first time I saw a lot of these movies very vividly, like my first experience watching them. Like the first time I saw Godzilla 85, and realized, oh, there's scary ones too. Not all of them are Godzilla and King Caesar belly bumping Mecha Godzilla. There's some scary ones too. The first time I watched Godzilla 85, was just so shocking. I remember being alone in a dark room with all the lights turned out. We had a big TV. We were over at my Aunt Julie's house. And I had a plate of chicken nuggets, and it was just me in front of a TV in a dark room. And the thing opens up with the Godzilla versus Bambi cartoon, which in a way caught me off guard. Like I was kind of cheated out and thought it was, oh, this is a cartoon. And then when the foot just stomps down and it's like that grim music, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then the movie that follows after that, like the whole sea louse scene, gave me nightmares. It was a really scary experience. But like from that point on, when I realized, oh, there's more, I continued through like I don't remember the last Godzilla movie I owned and watched new, obviously before like 2014 and Shin Godzilla and all that, was Godzilla Raids Again, which is a sad one to be like earning up to and to being like, oh, this is the last one. But I went on a quest from like all the way up to the age of like 10 or 11 when I got that as my last one. of just being on a quest, collecting them all. Got to catch them all. And luckily, you know, I grew up in a blessed time where a lot of this stuff was coming to DVD. And wasn't just this unattainable thing that you would be lucky to record off of Monster Vision or something.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I remember that's my early experience that I look upon very fondly, is just being on a quest to find new Godzilla movies and watch them all.
Yeah, and it was similar with me too. But before I continue, let's read some of the quick comments that we've gotten. Yeah, we got several people with us. Oh darn! Hold on. Sorry, everybody. We are not the best when it comes to keeping on top of comments. Cyborg Man, yeah, I always thought it was bizarre how they always return back to normal, even when the Godzilla exists in their world on a daily basis. Riff the Witch says, that's why I love the Showa series. It's just a world where kaiju are real. Warrior King, he says, I wouldn't call it a problem either, especially back as a kid. I would be given anything to turn into a dino or a dragon. I'll have to track down the name someday. Truth is, it's out there. Cyborg Man again says, Godzilla, I think, is like a natural disaster in their world. So they just accept him and the monsters as part of life. Haha. Riff the Witch says, Gary Owen and Eric Boardman's dinosaurs. Thank you for clearing that up. I always forget the name of the other guy, but the other guy isn't Gary Owens. Warrior King says, oh, sweet. Thanks, Riff Witch. And Cyborg Man says, I like how the military is always like, ah, crap, here we go again. Godzilla's wrecking the place up. Riff Witch, hey, don't knock Shiza's abs. Okay. I guess somebody likes King Caesar's abs. Speaking of King Caesar, that was the thing about me. I don't think we had, I didn't have Blockbuster at the time. We either do a mom and pop store, but their giant monster category was extremely limited. We're talking like Return of the Dinosaurs, which is like a really obscure prequel or predecessor to Attack of the Super Monsters, with even worse dubbing, if you can believe that. And not only that, but I think some of the libraries also had other weirder movies we would get, especially dinosaur documentaries. As far as Godzilla movies went, the weird place was my parents. They would actually buy the movies to keep from the local Save-On, which is what CVS is today. And Save-On stores were really cool. They were like they were a drugstore, but they were also a very big grocery type store, and also tons of movies you could buy for cheap. And Good Time Home Videos and Video Treasures were the companies that released the most Godzilla movies at the time. So I had a VHS tape from Good Times Home Video with just the first episode of the Godzilla animated series on it from Hanna-Barbera. I had that old Gorgo VHS tape from Video Treasures with the scary.
I think I might have the same VHS with the Firebird episode. Was it just that one?
Yeah, just the Firebird.
I think I might have that same VHS tape.
Yeah. Yes. And the cover is Godzilla and Godzuki facing off against an off-colored version of the Megavolt monsters. And I wouldn't see another episode of the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series until like years later, when TNT had a Godzilla marathon. That wasn't just the movies; it was also like practically the first 12 episodes of the TV series. What else was there? Oh yeah. And through various uncles who knew that I loved Godzilla, I got tons of other movies. I got like the H-Man, the Varan the Unbelievable. I got I got Terror of Mechagodzilla for Christmas. That was awesome. Even knowing that I think I already had the movie on recorded VHS tape, but to have like that Paramount white, classy looking white sleeve. And, it's in that great picture of just Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla just facing off on each other. That was just great.
Sadly, the only Godzilla movie I ever got for a present was Godzilla versus Hedra. So that's my my Godzilla present.
What was it from? Was it from Orion Home Videos? And it was like that terrifying movie poster with Hedra just devouring the hippie woman.
No, this was the. I don't remember who put it out. Maybe it was TriStar when they were doing the 50th anniversary Godzilla films. Their DVD.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting you're in a completely generation.
Yeah.
So you had the earliest Godzilla DVDs. While I had like all these old obscure videotapes. Some of them which I still kept
I've
So
I've got for the Showa movies. A lot of the Showa movies I saw on VHS. Like I have in my collection that I've collected over the years of the multiple copies of a lot of this stuff.
Mhm.
I have all of the Showa movies on VHS tape, like with the exception of I don't think I don't have Terror of Mechagodzilla on VHS, and I don't have Raids Again on VHS either. With the exception of those two, I have them all on VHS, and then a couple of the Heisei ones. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was again very fortunate of being a youngin and having access to a lot of the DVD versions of this. Like the Hedra one was where I first saw the trailer for the Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, which I thought was a legitimate thing when I was little, and I was like, wow, that seems a little on the nose.
Yeah. It's funny
but,
you should say that because I saw the trailer for Lost Skeleton Gadavra when the Egyptian theater was having a Godzilla film festival. So as you were like a very little kid, I was like in my late teens, like, laughing my ass off at this trailer. And I think I was the only one in the theater that got the joke. So-
Yeah. Well, like from the age, like I said, from the age of like 4 or whatever, when I first discovered Godzilla movies, up to the age of 10 or 11 when I saw Godzilla Raids Again, it was my quest to watch every one ever made. Like Godzilla was my thing all throughout those formative years. And yeah, it's unfortunate though. Like the last ones for me to hunt down were like the lesser ones. Like the last couple that I remember seeing were new, where I got Godzilla versus Megalon from a pawn shop, which is the really crappy VHS Twin Towers tape where the whole thing is like a blue tint. Godzilla versus Megaguirus, and then Godzilla Raids Again was my last one. But yeah, I was lucky to get a lot of them on DVD, a lot of them in pretty good quality, and see the good ones early. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the good ones first and then went downhill into the 70s and more bizarre Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you know what? No, I take that back, because one of the last ones I also saw too was Godzilla Final Wars, which I got out of like a $5 bin at Walmart when that first came out in like 2005-ish, maybe 2004, 2005. Which was, even back then I realized, oh, this is terrible, but I love it. And that's Godzilla Final Wars for me. There are a few movies in the series that I will qualify as comfort food in cinema form. And that Final Wars is one of them, where I can just sit down and watch it and not be sad anymore, no matter what happened up until that in the course of my day.
Yeah. Godzilla Final Wars is a weird one.
Yeah.
We got some really good comments, and we got quite a bit of people watching. Thank you, everybody. I know I can't reply directly into the comments right now because of the way my computer is set up. Something that Brayton honestly criticized at the beginning of our little live stream, rightfully so.
Trying to help.
Okay. All right. I'll skip all the ones where everyone just gushes over Behemoth, the new elephant monster from the new Godzilla. I'm honestly surprised he's getting so much love, considering that my experience, Godzilla fans hate mammalian monsters. But a new person named Godzilla Kina Kaiju says King Caesar needs to be in another movie or at least a video game. I like King Caesar, so I will agree with you.
Wasn't he in Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii?
I believe he was. So, yeah. And he keeps showing up in other Godzilla video games, but they're like obscure Japanese Godzilla video games.
You know what? We can talk about that later when we switch topics a little bit. Yeah, another big part of my childhood was the Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee for the GameCube. Like, I'm not a gaming person, like at all.
Right.
But that was one thing where I found, oh, there's a Godzilla game. I think I saw it, like they had the trailer for it or whatever on the Classic Media DVD is where I saw it. And I'm like, oh, I need to get that. And I did.
Right. No, we will definitely talk about that because I'm not much of a game person myself. But I've had some experience with that game, and it's just interesting on how that game kind of led to like other bizarre giant monster related items. But just to quickly read these comments, we have Warrior King says Godzilla 1985 was a big kids Godzilla when I was little. I love that Godzilla meets Bambi sketch, as well as how scary and grim the rest of the film was. It left an impression on me. Riff the Witch says Scully. I know I'm saying her name wrong. The giant monster is a pretty girl, of course. Riff the Witch. She adores hideous insectoid monsters like that. So of course that monster would appeal to her. My weeb friend is angry at the Varan dub. So yeah, it's the American version of Varan is a terrible joke in its own right.
Oh, you know what? I take it back. That's another giant monster movie. It wasn't not a Godzilla movie, but that's another one that I got as a present. Was Varan the Unbelievable?
Yeah, and
Though
it was the
I'm lucky to
American
get-
version, wasn't it?
No.
Okay.
It was luckily it was the Japanese who put those out, like the Varan and Matango and
Oh,
Frankenstein.
Media
Conquered the World.
Blasters.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were lucky to get those DVDs because back then, Matango and Space Amoeba were nowhere available on VHS tape, and if they were just too obscure and too expensive to get.
Yeah.
And my uncles they had the hindsight to get me Varan the Unbelievable because it looked like a giant monster movie, and they said it was a Japanese monster movie on the back, but it was the American cut of the movie, which is completely different from the Japanese version.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as Riff the Witch quoted in one of the new dialogue scenes they filmed for the movie, "Yokai, it's a Japanese for giant prehistoric lizard."
Mhm.
Which is like calling a unicorn the same thing. Unicorn, it means vampire.
Mhm.
And quickly, Godzilla King of Kaiju says Hedorah is a really weird kaiju. Warrior King says I have so many happy memories watching Godzilla as a kid with my cousins and siblings. Good times. I remembered the old Sci-Fi Channel marathon special, Monsters of the Rising Sun. Warrior King. This was way back when
we're not going to read every single comment as we go along, are we, Raf?
No. Let me just finish
Please.
this one. Yeah. So unless we have some serious monster questions in the comments, I think we're gonna kind of bypass the comments. But this was back when Sci-Fi Channel. Now, what's it's on now? Sadly, yeah, Sci-Fi Channel. They showed Silent Film's Monster Island. That was a treat. Riff the Witch says Lost Skeleton was pretty legit, and yeah, so yeah, I think we'll stop there because especially with this much needed slideshow going on as we speak. There's no way we can comment on each and every. Oh, look, it's Baragon.
Let's keep going here.
Yeah, you're the referee, Brayton. You're keeping me from doing dumb stuff. So, now, oh god, getting back to my Godzilla memories, Godzilla 1985 was actually I think the only Godzilla movie the mom and pop shop had to rent. Because back then the one I knew had more contemporary DVDs, and other than Return of the Dinosaurs, the only other giant monster thing that you could rent was Flight of the Dragons, which was an animated spin-off to the Hobbit movie from Rankin Bass. Which if you're a kid who's just getting into kaiju and giant monsters, those kind of weird fantasy movies are a welcome alternative, like the Ray Harryhausen stuff. And Jack the Giant Killer, which we both kind of grew up with. So, but no, it's Godzilla 1985 was definitely like a much scarier Godzilla movie, and I was a kid who wasn't used to like horror movies. So whenever the scene with the Shokiras, the giant sea louse, appeared, I was always covering my eyes.
Oh, that was horrifying.
Yeah, it is horrifying.
And the sound that it makes, and when it just leaps on the guy.
Yeah, it's although I have to wonder. I do have this. I was thinking this because I was watching Godzilla, Return of Godzilla a couple of nights ago after we talked about the last time, and I do have to ask you a question. Do you think it was that one sea louse that killed everyone on the ship, or do you think when Godzilla rose out of the ocean, there was a whole swarm of sea louses that just attacked the ship and killed everybody, with the exception of one of our characters, Kenny? And what we saw was just the aftermath of the horrific events.
I had always assumed that it was just that one, but that's entirely possible.
Yeah, because it's like it's a scary insect, but it's like I don't think it would have been able to kill everybody on board unless Godzilla. And back as a kid, I always thought that all the corpses were not drained of blood by the Shokiras. It was just Godzilla just blew his fire, and somehow the ship was okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And then
I'm picturing like which one is it? Jurassic Park 2, where like the T-Rex supposedly kills the crew somehow.
Yeah,
even though he's
yeah. It makes no sense unless like his arms could extend like something out of
Let me
Tammy.
get in there. Get
Yeah,
in there.
yeah. Like the ridiculously extending arms from Tammy and the T-Rex, just getting people. It's ridiculous. Don't watch Tammy and the T-Rex. Although I know we're gonna have some people in the comments who are gonna like, no way, that's the best movie ever, man.
I've seen Tammy the T-Rex. I can confirm that it
Okay,
is
yeah,
not the best movie ever.
and apparently there's an uncut gore version that's hitting the film festivals right now. But no, and then in addition to the Godzilla, my local channel 13 also was the only station that syndicated Ultraman Towards the Future.
Mm.
And you've only seen one episode of Ultraman Towards the Future, and I know it's not your bag.
Yeah, well,
But-
I never watched Ultraman as a kid. The only Ultraman I ever saw when I saw it was much later, just because everybody had been talking about it and I had been kind of curious. I got the full box set of the original Ultraman. And yeah, it I don't know, it's just not my thing. Like what is it called? What is that called? That style? Sentai? Super Sentai?
No, Super Sentai is a franchise that Power Rangers is spawned from. Tokusatsu, I think, would be the best way to describe it.
Tokusatsu is like all Japanese special effects.
Yeah, it's an umbrella term, so I would just call it Japanese superheroes.
Giant hero stuff. Yeah, it was just I don't know. It was just never appealing like to me. But no, that's interesting. You saw that when you were young?
Yes, in fact, it was like 1991, less than a year after the Godzilla marathon ended, and it's like, oh, all these Godzilla movies are cool, but I could use something a little more contemporary. And then I remember that magical Monday morning when me and my brothers were, well, whenever we would go to school, we would hang out at our grandma's house because our grandma's house was right next door to the school we went to. So we would spend mornings watching as many cartoons as we could before we went off to school. And of course, being the unfortunately dumb kids we were, it wasn't Sesame Street. It was like that Ninja Turtle ripoff show with the dinosaurs in the 1930s alternate world or something. Extreme Dinosaurs, I think it was called. Or it was like Ninja, like there was tons of Ninja Turtle ripoffs everywhere. And then all of a sudden, it's like this TV commercial came on with just like this kind of weird blue explosion going in reverse, forming the words Ultraman. And all of a sudden there was like this big red and silver giant fighting like the most grotesque monsters we've ever seen. And with like this epic like orchestral music playing, like, you know, dun 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 dun. And it was all silent, it was just the music and the monster sound effects. And it's like Ultraman Towards the Future, Sunday mornings on channel 13. And it's like, holy shit. And it's like for like a good 2 weeks before the show premiered, or a week before the show premiered, me and my brothers were just wondering, what the hell is Ultraman? I bet he's a giant robot like Chit Jaguar. And of course, when we saw the show itself, it was just even weirder because it was an astronaut that merged with a giant aliens, metallic skinned alien superhero who was otherwise fully organic. And the monsters he battled were like for the time, it was like contemporary science fiction stuff. So this was sort of my taste in Heisei era Godzilla horror before I had a chance to actually see the Heisei Godzillas. So it was kind of cool that the villains of Ultraman Towards the Future, with few exceptions, felt more like a monster that Godzilla 1985 would fight than the monsters that I was used to in like older Japanese monster movies. But yeah, through there I got a chance, and I recorded every episode. In fact, I think I still have a lot of the old VHS tapes with Ultraman Towards the Future on it. I've upgraded my collection thanks to our mutual friend David, or Gorizard. So yeah, yeah, he oh god. And then there was Gamera, who back then I had no idea Gamera existed, so I completely stumbled upon him, of all things, through an episode of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I know, not Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because I had
Playhouse.
Yeah, Pee-wee's Playhouse, because Pee-wee's Big Adventure had the Godzilla and Ghidorah cameo. And of course, I was introduced to that movie long before I saw Godzilla proper, so I was just wondering what the heck was up with these weird monsters that just suddenly appeared in this Pee-wee movie. But Pee-wee's Playhouse, they had a recurring segment where Pee-wee would have like a foreign friend, most likely an actor just pretending to be foreign, but doing a more subtle job than, say, you know, the king of cartoons or like some of the other characters that would live around his house. And they would always show like footage or like something cultural of significance to their country and origins. And then
and so they chose Gamera.
Yeah, they had a friend from Japan who's like, "Hi, Pee-wee, I bring you footage from a popular film series from our country." And it's like me and my brothers were just, again, we were gobsmacked again by like this weird footage of these monsters that obviously looked even more bizarre and insane than what we're used to in the Godzilla films. They're all like silvery. As I've mentioned plenty of times, the monsters from the old Gamera movies look like monsters that they were designed by Art Clokey.
Yeah, Art Clokey's Lost World.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of an inaccurate backhanded compliment because there's an episode of Gumby that actually features fairly realistic, terrifying dinosaurs that Gumby and friends are almost killed by. But no, these monsters look like if Gumby and Godzilla merged to become some kind of bizarre turtle-looking thing. And of course it was like a montage of like Gamera fight scenes with the Gamera theme song, and it ended with the scene of like the father from Gamera Zigra telling the kid why we shouldn't pollute beaches with our Coke bottles. And where it's like, oh my god, we gotta find this crap. And weirdly enough, sadly, I know the USA Network at a time used to air Gamera movies all the time when it started. You know, especially through the Commander USA program. But by then, USA Network, the only B movies it would show would be on the USA Up All Nights, and it would always be like terrifying B movies from the 80s, like horror movies and like bizarre trauma films, heavily edited, but they were still kind of hardcore stuff for a kid like me growing up. So my experience with Gamera was through Blockbuster Video because they had all the Sandy Frank Gamera movies, which is a shame because I wish I saw the American International dubbed versions of Gamera first. So of course I got like, you know, like that wonderful bits of like bizarre dialogue, like, you know, Terra is a star. You are
Terra
on
is a dead star. I'm gonna ask you some questions now.
Right. It is a highly advanced world without traffic accidents or wars or genocide or traffic accidents or disease or traffic accidents.
Stop it, or you cannot enter a good school.
Parents, they have no dreams.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, that was our first introduction to Gamera. Although I think the Gamera movies, even as a little kid who was more forgiving of these monster movies, even we were a little like, yeah, these movies are a bit off. And it's like, but for a while, and of course Blockbuster Video had even more Japanese monster movies. That's where I saw Yongari Monster from the Deep. That's where I finally got a chance to see Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. And I say Godzilla versus the Smog Monster because it was the American International dubbed version, which is still, I think, the best version of the movie, not counting the Japanese version, of course. Yeah. So, and that's the one with the translated song "Save the Earth."
Yeah, don't feel bad about referring to. I still refer to like a lot of these things as the versions that I originally saw them at. Like I still call Ghidorah a lot, and I still call Hedorah Hedra, and I never call Kumunga. I call it's fucking Spiga. It's Spiga. It's easy to say. It's easy to pronounce right there.
Yeah. That is the funny thing. It's hard to get out of these childhood habits of what monster names they use. So especially when, like I call I know he's I know I called King Ghidorah, Ghidorah, because I swear that's how they used to say Ghidorah back in the old dubs.
Here's the thing. It never bothers me because there's so many pronunciations of this stuff. They pronounce, and with dubbing especially, they pronounce the monsters' names different. There's Godzilla, Goodzilla, Anguirus, Angulus, Gorosaurus, or as a churro would say, Brosaurus.
Guy, look at that.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I never did. That's no big deal.
Yeah. I know we have our mutual friend Kaiju Noir loves to grill me whenever I get these.
If you call Gigan Gigan, then we'll have a problem. But other than that, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I think at this point we can all agree it's Gigan no matter what. So,
but anyway, what were we talking about?
Okay, I was talking about my memories of Godzilla, and through Blockbuster Video, I saw some of the other Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
but there was sort of a kind of a dead spot between the early 90s and eventually when Godzilla 98 came out in theaters.
Uh-huh.
Because like I practically saw all the Japanese monster movies I could, as well as other giant monster movies that would whet my appetite. I was a big fan of the Ray Harryhausen movies. I didn't care about. I love stop motion as much as I love really good guys in monster suits. So for me, the Ray Harryhausen films are equal with the Godzilla movies in quality. Although obviously Ray Harryhausen definitely had the one up in the artistry, but it's all good stuff regardless. There was a lot of like lesser known weird giant monster movies I would watch, like Captain Sinbad, and of course a mutual favorite of ours, Jack the Giant Killer, which is it Jack the Giant Killer or Jack the Giant Slayer? I keep getting the titles mixed up.
Jack the Giant Killer.
Yeah, it's like I was a big fan of that movie. And that was kind of a weirdie that, I think I saw as a kid even before I got into dinosaurs. So Valley of the Dragons, which was like one of the millions of black and white movies that just reused footage from 1 million BC. But I think it was one of the better films because it had a more engaging human section and they really used all the footage. And of course, there was TNT's Monster Vision and some of the weird movies that TBS would play. Like, TBS had Christmas Creatures, which was like a triple feature of like just random monster movies. And I saw like Hammer Films' The Lost Continent. That sleazy movie with all the criminals on a illegal ship in the middle of a killer seaweed mound. There was At the Earth's Core with Doug McClure, which I think was my introduction to like the Doug McClure quadrilogy of monster movies. And then of course The Last Dinosaur, which was completely new to me. But then when I saw it, it's like, oh my god, it's a Japanese monster movie with Richard Boone, you ding dong.
Yeah.
And then of course through TNT's Monster Vision, I got a taste of like non-giant monsters, like Message from Space, Battle in Outer Space, the H-Man. Although I think I may have already previously seen that through videotape. And of course the Green Slime, which is like one of the best Japanese monster movies that doesn't have a giant monster in it. But then there was like for a brief time before Godzilla 98, there was kind of a dry spell of just giant monster stuff, not counting the comic books from Dark Horse Comics, which I need to revisit because I don't know, I don't exactly have the best feelings for those films right now, those comics right now. But they're like Blockbuster would, if you widen your palette a bit, you could find some of the more bizarre Asian created or Asian influenced monster movies that not most kaiju fans are familiar with, like a 1994 film Zaram, or even a movie that's heavily inspired by Japanese entertainment, but it was actually filmed in California, Adventures of the Kung Fu Rascals, which ends with a battle between two Daimajin like statue giants.
Yeah, well, you had a much cooler Blockbuster in your area and your time than I did, because a lot of where I would go for a lot of this stuff was that mom and pop video store when I was a little kid. And then here I think it's just a Midwest thing, Family Video, which is the video store where that's the one where I saw stuff like, what is it? Godzilla versus Gigan for the first time, and Godzilla 2000 I got from there. They had quite a bit of stuff. But our Blockbuster, and I was very young when I saw this, but the only Godzilla stuff they had at all was Godzilla 98 and King Kong versus Godzilla. And I eventually bought that copy of and I still own that copy of King Kong versus Godzilla on VHS tape.
Right, with the blue cover and like the weird.
I own that, and I own are you familiar with the was it a VHS or a DVD? I don't know. I had it and then I lost it, where it had like the really bad Photoshop cover for like the 35th anniversary or something. It had Godzilla and like it had the Megalon version of Godzilla fighting the 76 Kong, or just like a generic monkey cover. Do you know this?
No, I don't.
I'll try and find a picture.
If you can find a picture, I'll try to share it here, even though we got the slideshow going on.
Okay.
And it's sad too because I'm looking at a different computer, but it's completely connected to another hard drive. So I'm seeing all these great comments, but I can't reply to them. So although I will say, Riff the Witch, yes, you're not the only one who knows about Zaram, and Riff the Witch also says Giant Killer doesn't have any female giants either, but does have Helen and Flora, the Wind Witches. So Yeah, the Wind Witches were weird. I love them.
Yeah,
So
well, that's where I would go for my rental stuff, and then for buying things, luckily, like Best Buy. Or do they have? I'm sure they have Best Buy out there, right? That's a national
yes,
thing,
in
I
fact,
think.
yeah, there's a Best Buys down the street, although it's definitely kind of like its video section has gone way down recently. I think
Oh, in
Best Buy,
recent
yeah,
years, yeah.
yeah,
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 definitely in recent years, even over here. But when I was growing up, being a kid and everything, they had all this stuff at Best Buy. Like my dad and I would go, we would make it our mission. He would get paid, and we'd go and I'd get a movie like every Friday from Best Buy.
right.
That's where I originally saw Gamera, was on a double feature. Gamera versus Gauss, or what is it called? Attack of the Giant Monsters, the international version.
Yes.
Return of the Giant Monsters, something like that. And it was on a double feature with the Magic Sword, or not the Magic Sword, the Magic Serpent,
Mhm.
which I liked a lot better than Gamera versus Gauss.
Yeah, the Magic Serpent is a really cool movie, and I hope that gets an official re-release, because to everybody in the comment section, if you can find a good version of the Magic Serpent, I would recommend it. It's more ninja fantasy adventure than Giant Monsters, but the Giant Monster is the icing on the cake. So,
yeah, I'll try and forward this copy. Is it I can't remember if it was a VHS or a DVD that I had, but it exists. Anyway, keep going about your
yeah.
blockbuster
Well,
experiences.
it's one person in the comment section commented on how good the images are, and a lot of these images I've been collecting for a while and have my own folders separated by Giant Monster, and this is the Godzilla King Kong folder. So anything related to Godzilla, King Kong, and Toho Productions in general is where you're seeing a lot of these images, both obscure and less than obscure. Although I did throw in a couple of my illustrations in just for extra eye candy. So.
Here it is. Here it is. Yeah, it was on DVD. Here you go. This,
Right.
yeah, it was the 35th anniversary edition of
Right.
King Kong versus Godzilla. Yeah, I remember the cover very vividly.
Yeah. Let me get out of the slideshow for now. Oh, wrong button. Okay, there we go. All right, Google Hangout. Oh, hold on. Stop sharing. I really need to improve my computer setup so I can just, because I'm afraid that if I log into the second computer to talk to people, it's going to stop the live stream, because it's like, oh, alert, secondary Enshohma, this is not right, does not compute.
Well, anyway, just so we don't sort of derail everything and keep on stopping and starting, let's keep talking about the subjects at hand rather than pulling up new stuff.
Yeah, no, it's like I forgot, like every once in a while you would get like a major hit as far as like Giant Monsters go before the late 90s. Like for example, TNT, they just like there was Power Rangers, of course, and when I needed my Giant Monster fix when there was no new Godzilla readily available, I would watch Power Rangers. But thanks through Power Rangers, Turner Classic Networks, TNT, was able to air the original Ultra 7 alongside G-Force on the early version of Cartoon Network, and that's one of the American versions of Gotcha Man. And those had tons of giant monsters in them. Like Gotcha Man, even though it was kind of a scientific-based show, it was littered with like giant robot monsters every episode. And Ultra 7, of course, that was a series that me and my brothers just instantly fell in love with. It was like Ultraman, but a little kookier, a little wackier. We even did like a series of fan films that weren't exactly about Ultra 7, but they were inspired by Ultra 7, called Invaders. So unfortunately, only 2 of the 4 episodes we made survived, and said episodes were only 10 minutes each. But it's like the first one, we battled against a giant blob monster that was like sort of a fake Hedorah. It was just a plastic tarp we had in the backyard. Second episode, it was me dressed up like as an evil alien villain, like kind of worm-like. The third one, I dressed up as like like in black sweats and black sweater, and I was a criminal from a parallel universe. And then the final episode, which is definitely lost, and because somebody accidentally recorded over it, we decorated a empty white room with like some brown blankets and a bunch of dinosaur toys, and it was my brother and our cousin Alex on Mars fighting against every kind of dinosaur monster you can imagine.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it's sadly Invaders no longer exists. But if I could post episodes on YouTube, I would. Although I know that would kind of upset some of my brothers. So, But yeah, that was sort of our unofficial Ultra 7 fan film. So things were a little quiet on the kaiju front, even knowing that the Gamera Guardian Universe came out on video shortly after 1995, thanks to ADV. And you were probably lucky enough to catch that when that finally came out, didn't you?
The what?
Gamera Guardian Universe?
Oh God, no. Well, I mean, later, much later, because yeah, Gamera was a thing where I had gotten that, and that was the only Gamera thing I had seen for a long time was Gamera versus Gauss, and then later, after I owned all the Godzilla movies, I went back and watched. After I would get more, giant monster collection box sets with like public domain crap on it, with like a young Gary, Monster from the Deep, and Warning from Space, which isn't even really a giant monster thing. I'd watched the English dub public domain versions of the Showa Gamera stuff, but no, I didn't watch the Heisei Gamera things until much later. And within the past maybe 5 or 6 years is when I saw those all at the same time. And Guardian of the Universe is definitely my favorite though.
No, I feel a little sad because I saw Gamera Guardian Universe when it more or less was brand new on home video, and that was getting kind of a bit of praise at the time by the various science fiction magazines. And what was it? But the thing was that I didn't get a chance to see Gamera 2 and Gamera 3 for a long time afterwards. And that was the holy grail of trying to find new kaiju stuff. And I think it was around 1997 or 98 when I discovered the bootleg market. I do regret it now because a lot of the VHS bootlegs back then sucked. It's whereas you were being introduced to all the newer Godzilla movies on these beautiful Blu-rays at Blockbuster, I was
I didn't watch the Blu-rays. I would watch the DVDs. I again very lucky and blessed to grow up in a very cherished time when all this stuff is far more accessible than it ever was before. So yeah, a lot of everything I would get were the TriStar released English dub DVDs at Best Buy, and then the non-Godzilla Toho movies and giant monster stuff I would get from Borders, which has since gone out of business famously. But yeah, that's where I saw a lot of pretty much everything else under the sun giant monster related. That's where I got the Heisei Gamera movies from, and that's where I first saw Queen Kong, for better or worse.
Oh, Queen Kong
was from our local Borders, yeah. She's
the queenie for our weenies.
Yeah, but no, I could imagine the horrible time, especially you who lives and breathes this stuff. Would how sad it would have been to have a drought there.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really much of a drop, but it was still an incredibly niche market. And of course, I had no access to the Heisei Godzilla movies or the newer Gamera films outside Gamera Guardian Universe. And I didn't know the right people to get bootlegs from, but at the same time, I didn't really want to get bootlegs.
I didn't even know. I had heard of when I discovered the internet as a child, and Toho. I spent a lot of time on Toho Kingdom. That's where I found out about Ultraman and Zone Fighter and this whole other world of shit I don't know about. Because for the longest, and this is all when I was a really young kid, around the age of 8, 10. I got on Toho Kingdom, and I was like, wow, there's more shit from the same type of stuff out there from all over the world that I don't know about. So that was pretty wild. And I had heard of bootleg things through the grapevine, but I didn't even know what a bootleg was. So I think that word always intimidated me. So no, I never. I always got the most readily available, commercially available versions of all these things.
Yeah, you're very lucky. I oh my goodness. Yeah, it's it was always obscure VHS tapes or barely known DVD releases or the odd television airings here and there. It's had I lost my VHS copy of Captain Sinbad, there would have been no way in hell I could have gotten a VHS version because those were long out of print.
Yeah.
And oh god, yeah. And so you were fortunate. So
yeah, and then when I first went to G Fest too, My first G Fest, I was 9. It was 2008. Yeah, that's when I really became aware to me of just how much of this stuff is out there and how overwhelming being a little kid and thinking you know it all, and then being shown all of these various images of giant creatures fighting other giant creatures you've never heard of. Yeah, it was very, very eye-opening. But yeah, that's a thing about me and my early G Fest. Like the first G Fest I went to, I think I took. I don't think I was. If I wish I was. I wish I was as aware as I am now of all this stuff and like was more in the moment about it, because my first G Fest was the only time I ever met Haru Nakajima. Um, and it wasn't really even a meeting. You know, I'm a 9-year-old little kid. I just go through the autograph line and shake his hand
Oh
and say
yeah,
hi.
yeah. It's
Um,
I guess like just go look, a Japanese gentleman. How
Yeah.
are you doing?
And then the next one, I met Kenji Sahara, and it was kind of the same thing. Yeah, I wish I was more receptive to everything back
Yeah.
then, but or more what's the term? Like when you're able to look at something. Yeah, I wish I had better perspective on
Okay.
everything.
Yeah. I don't know. It's forgivable when you're that young. It's like when you're like 30 years old and you're like holding up a line because you want to blame the actor for all the mistakes in Star Trek. It's like then there's a problem. Or so basically, Power Morphicon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to do my best not to bash on Power Rangers or talk about Power Rangers today, or else you're going to play the elephant music, which you've threatened to do in the past.
Yeah.
Taking a drink of water. I've also stopped the clip show for now, just so I can focus on the chat section. Gamera Warrior King says Gamera Guardian Universe impressed me after having watched it, the old Showa Gamera films first, and I was like, hell yeah, this is more like it. Yeah, I think that's what the makers of Gamera Guardian Universe felt. It's like, if we're going to bring this turtle back, we're going to do it right, and we're going to blow Toho out of the water. So now, of course, came the eventful day that the American Godzilla movie came to theaters in 1998. And I remember my aunt, one of my aunts took me to go see that movie in theaters. And I think it was an early Friday morning showing. All I remember is the movie didn't impress me too much, although I did appreciate just going to the movies because it was a gift. So don't look at it a gift horse in the mouth, especially when somebody pays for your movie ticket. The only negative thing, I actually kind of enjoyed the movie itself back then. Of course, later I would realize it was not that good of a movie. The only negative thing I remember is that there was this one lady who just kept laughing throughout the whole movie, but she wasn't laughing with the film. She was like one of those people who would just, I think she thought colors on the screen were funny. You know, like one of those people who just laughs at the absurdity that there's this thing called movie entertainment that's been made and she's inside a theater. So that kind of ruined the experience a bit. And it was funny too because when Godzilla 98 premiered we were in the middle of like I think one of the El Niños, one of the storms. So the fact that the film was raining, I thought was kind of cool. That it was raining outside and it was raining in the movie. Even though when it turned out later, we would all find out that one of the main reasons it's only raining in the movie had nothing to do with contemporary commentary on the weather at the time. It had everything to do with covering up some of the special effects flaws. So a trick that's still done in the movies today. But thanks to Godzilla 98, that kind of opened the flood, not the floodgates, but kind of made Godzilla awareness a lot more public. Like you would still have people who would still think Godzilla movies, there was only like they only made one Godzilla movie and it was only popular in Japan, but for the most part it was a lot easier to find Godzilla related material, and that's when the Heisei movies finally got released onto VHS tape. So it's like then a couple of weeks after seeing Godzilla 98 in theaters, like I would go into Blockbuster, and this was when Blockbuster was becoming less fun. They were getting rid of a lot of their older VHS tapes for like newer stuff. And I was just wandering the video store. It's like, oh, this, yeah, whatever. And there was a VHS copy of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I was like, oh my god! Like I literally screamed, and I think I was like still a teenager at this time. It's like I gotta get this. I gotta get this. So, and I think that was my first introduction to Heisei movies. Although I totally forgot. Godzilla vs. Biollante was available on VHS tape long before 98 happened. Now it's because Dimension Films or Miramax, I forget which one, in association with HBO Video, released
I think it's Miramax.
Yeah. They released the movie early on VHS, even though, and it aired on Cinemax. And it was funny because it was kind of like the Godzilla movie I personally didn't believe in its existence. Like, I remember there was a cousin of mine, Noah, who actually saw the movie on Cinemax, and he tried to tell me how cool this Godzilla movie was. But when you hear things like a giant evil rose bush and, you know, CGI frameworks for the Godzilla and like a flying Super X2, it's like, you're making this bullshit up. I don't believe you.
I would have that with the Mothra trilogy as a little kid. They would play those on the Sci-Fi channel. And my mom would be like, "Oh, look, Mothra was just on," and I'm like, "Mothra? There's no Mothra movie." And yeah, sure enough, there's plenty of Mothra movies.
Yeah, a lot of Mothra. Too much Mothra, even. So
Yeah.
for everyone listening, this is the days before the internet was very useful. So yeah, it's like my poor cousin. He tried telling me like Raf, you need to see this movie. It's awesome. You're lying.
Did you ever go on I don't know if this was after your time or around there, but one of the early Godzilla sites I remember is Barry's Temple of Godzilla.
I remember Barry's Temple of Godzilla. I don't think I was ever a part of a forum or anything, but that would always be like one of the first Godzilla websites you would find whenever you logged on the internet. And of course, it had a helpful but very simplistic monster roster telling you which monsters were who in the series.
Yeah.
And of course, back then, early, like most Godzilla fans still don't consider the giant condor or the giant octopus actual monsters, so they always got left out of the list. But there would be like a rundown of the different monsters with like the most basic images you can imagine. And if you clicked on the side, you would hear the monsters screams. Yeah.
I bookmarked that as a little kid, and I would go there and just click on the roars all the time.
Yeah, and I remember the earliest versions of like August Ragoon's Godzilla monster blogs, which was based on his Haitian Online magazine. And that would have some of the weirdest articles about like tokusatsu stuff I didn't even know existed, like Ultraman Z-Earth or the sequel series, The Message from Space, which was a television series. Something that you and I had the pleasure of watching recently through a Sword of the Space arc.
Yes.
More about that later, maybe.
No.
Yeah. we'll save that for the Message from Space live stream.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, there's a lot of the early Godzilla websites. There was a lot left to be desired, but those were at least it was nice to know these films existed. You had a better idea who and what was going on in the world of Godzilla, because for the longest time I thought Space Godzilla was a hoax. I thought that was or it was like a bizarre.
What are you, Alex Jones now? Just thinking all these movies were false flag operations?
I'm telling you, Space Godzilla is just an excuse to get young children to become crystal gays.
They're putting chemicals in the crystals that are turning the space monsters gay.
You can tell because Space Godzilla is fabulous.
Yeah, okay. All these movies I saw, I don't know. It was weird. I watched a lot of these out of order, but I think for the most part, I watched a lot of the good ones first. Like the first two, as I mentioned, I saw were Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, one from the Showa, era, one from the Heisei era. And I thought they were like connected. I thought like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was a sequel to Ghidorah. So I was very confused. No, yeah, with the Heisei movies, I got the, I think it was again, TriStar who made the double packs of like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, was on in a double pack with Mothra Battle for Earth, and then Space Godzilla was in a double pack with Destroya.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, different times. We grew up in different times, Raf.
Yeah, exactly. Although we started to meet around the '98 era as far as similar film releases go. Because that's when, like you said, Sony was starting to release all the Godzilla movies.
Yeah, around the '98 era, that's where you watched a lot of stuff, and that's where I was born.
Right, but by the time you were like 4 years old or something, Godzilla 2000 came out in theaters, and that's when the Godzilla movies were finally getting some decent DVD releases from Sony, like maybe 2 years later. So, and that's like, I remember collecting a lot of those, and I still have them to this day. I'm surprised how expensive they go for on eBay now.
So what again?
the Sony Entertainment releases of like
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
Godzilla Final Wars, Godzilla versus
I have all of that stuff. So yeah, again, if I'm ever what is the term, strapped for cash or whatever, yeah, I can make some bank. But yeah, that's weird. It's weird to think of how, again, taking things for granted. You know, I'd find those at our local Best Buy or our local Walmart. They just have them in the $5 bin, and I'd be like, I'll take that.
Yeah, you're lucky. I foolishly bought them when they were brand new the week
Mhm.
they were released, which of course ties into Godzilla versus Megaguirus. But we'll save that horror show in a little bit because I ended up buying that movie 3 times, and I, in addition to it being my least favorite Godzilla movie, the fact that I had to buy it 3 times pissed me off. So,
Yeah.
oh, but yeah, that's a whole different story in its own right. So, but yeah, that's like by the time you're starting to become a toddler, and by the time I was starting to reach my late teens, like we finally met as far as the Godzilla collections went, because yeah, Sony Entertainment was finally releasing these babies on the DVD. Media Blasters was releasing some of the lesser known monster movies like Atragon, Space Amoeba, Matango, and it was finally nice to get some like real DVD versions as opposed to like the really crappy Something Weird Entertainment version of Matango or Dogora, the monster from space. So okay, quick aside for the person in the comment section, Riff Witch, I love Megaguirus herself as a monster. She's really awesome. But the movie itself, my experiences around the movies can go
Here we go. Get ready, folks.
stick its tongue on a frozen pipe.
Yeah. That's it. I don't know. That was the thing. I think Godzilla versus or Godzilla Raids Again was the first one where because I don't know. I guess you'd call it childhood innocence or whatever. But yeah, I never really disliked a Godzilla movie up until the last one I had to collect was Godzilla Raids Again. And then I was underwhelming.
Yeah, was that did you only get the American version or did you get like
no, yeah, it was the what is it? I think again Classic Media or whatever who put out the with the Japanese and English version with the two-sided disc.
Oh yeah.
The little, like they had the little thin cases, you know.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, the silver cases from Classic Media. Yes.
Yeah.
I have all those too. They're out of print, unfortunately, and I thought those were really good sets.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh wow. I have so many kaiju DVDs, but I'm not ready to part with them. So
well, I can part. I've made copies of all of mine. I have several copies of pretty much all of them already. And then we've as a young child, you know, I've always copied them over to you know, just burned them to DVD anyway. So yeah, I can part with some. But
right.
Fascinating.
You're lucky. Weird. Yeah, no, unfortunately I'm still kind of old school when it comes to like recording stuff. I have a DVD recorder, which is literally a VCR for DVDs. And they stopped making those a while ago. So when my DVD recorder finally falls apart, you know, finally dies of old age, and I've had her for like over her 5-year warranty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to either spend like at least $400 to get a brand new one off eBay.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna have to look into maybe saving some money and getting a local person to fix it for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it was me or my dad who was extra protective, but yeah, whenever I'd get a new Godzilla movie, before I'd even watch it, he would like take it and then burn it to DVD through like whatever program on the computer, and then write in black Sharpie the name of the movie on it just to keep as a backup and put it in a little case.
That's a smart thing to do, because when I used to have, I actually had a Cyber Home DVD player which would bypass most copy guards. So with the DVD recorder, I would make backup discs of everything I could, which is good because almost like I have 2 boxes worth of Doctor Who DVDs, and almost all of those are out of print. Like insane prices you could find, like $100 for a 3-disc set of Doctor Who and the War Games.
Yeah.
So yeah, but at the same time, I don't have backups of Doctor Who and the War Games, and I don't want to get rid of the Doctor Who. And not only that, but Doctor Who is so expensive. Like they recently started releasing the full seasons on Blu-ray sets, but they're so. But
back on course, Raf. Back on course.
No, you don't understand. Doctor
Stay
Who
on target. Stay on target. Stay on target.
I can do it. Oh no.
Yeah. So
The show was
Godzilla.
dead.
No, yeah, that was always a smart thing to do, in case that it got damaged or anything. Obviously, it was different with the VHS stuff, but yeah, whenever
Mhm.
we'd get a DVD from Best Buy, that would be the first thing that would happen to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, weird to think everything's going out of print now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had very different experiences with it. It's interesting because yeah, um, I w- I don't know. I grew up when the last, I was a very little kid. I was 2004. I was 5 years old when the last Toho movie came out. Before Shin.
Mhm.
Um, so I had a lot of easy access to all that stuff. I couldn't. I get taking it for granted. I guess I couldn't imagine being born, 10, 20 years earlier and being like, oh, I saw it on TV and now it's never coming back. I have
Oh
to
my
wait
goodness.
for it.
Yeah, there are so many bizarre movies like The Mystery of Firemarsh Lake, which was like this obscure plesiosaur movie from like my childhood. It's like, did I dream that or did it actually
Is that the one
happen?
you made a video about?
Yes, I did. And apparently you can buy the DVD itself from the production house in Phoenix, Arizona, that still makes these educational movies, but it's like $35. So I'm going to wait until after I come back from G-Fest to get that. By the way, I think I should announce to everybody, I'm going to G-Fest to hang out with this schmuck.
Yay.
Yay! But I'm not going to be on a panel. I'm not going to be a guest. I'm not going to have my own artist table because this is my first time writing out on airplane.
Hey, Raf,
And yes,
if you want, since we're not really filming much, or we're not doing a vlog Saturday, we could record your thoughts on G-Fest for your channel with my camera when we're there.
oh, if we're there, if not, that's something I can easily do in a live stream or a podcast when I come back. But
Okay.
it is, yeah. Now thinking about it, the idea of like condensing all those sketches we had planned is probably a good idea. Although I do love the new sketch you came up with. Oh yeah, no spoilers. It's a surprise. But let's just say,
Anyway.
yeah, let's just say a certain character is also
You're
coming to
going
G-Fest.
You're going to G-Fest this year. Yeah, you'd probably be in like no, you went to G-Fest, one of the early ones though, right?
Yes. When Godzilla made it big in '98, even though in the movie a lot of people hate it today, the movie was still financially successful at its time.
That's funny again because I saw these when I was a kid and I had that innocence. I didn't hate. I'm one of the people who didn't learn to hate '98 until I found the internet and was told that I had to hate it. Yeah, I didn't. I was really indifferent on it as a kid.
Yeah. No, well, it would be funny to talk about the '98 Godzilla in a little bit, but no. As far as the G-Fest went, for 2 years in a row, JD Lease, I thought he may have thought it was a good idea to go to California, so they moved G-Fest up to Long Beach, near the Bob Hope Airport, and during that time the area was very underdeveloped, as opposed to now where it's practically in the middle of a city. I remember me and my mom went up there. We were only supposed to go for a day, but because we got lost, we decided, screw it, we'll get a hotel room and stay the weekend. And it was cool because I got to stay in late. And they actually, unlike current G-Fest, they actually had, it was a Hilton hotel, and they actually allowed some of the panels to go in extra late. Like I remember they were showing, they ended up showing Yamato Takero like well into like midnight. They were going to have a late night screening room where they were going to show like more hardcore stuff like Lady Snowblood, very violent samurai movie from the 70s, but they decided to kind of not do that since everyone would be going to bed. But yeah, my first G-Fest was at the Hilton Hotel in 1998, near the Bob Hope Airport, and it was really cool, of course. And it's weird enough, I think that same convention is where they have Monsterpalooza Son of Monsterpalooza every September here in Los Angeles. Although I might be mistaken, but if so, I must have been a little kid back then because the convention seems a lot smaller than it used to be. But yeah, a lot of familiar rooms. Like I was there at like one Son of Monsterpalooza. Like, why is this whole building seems so familiar?
That's funny.
Yeah, and then in 1999. They decided to move G-Fest to Hollywood in the Roosevelt Hotel, which, and back then since then the Roosevelt Hotel has become a much more swankier hotel than it is now. But back then it was kind of like a mom and pop type area, and it was so low key that you could actually go on the roof with the doors unlocked. Nobody would complain unless you locked yourself out, and then you'd have to take the fire escape. Talking from personal experience, but that's another story. But yeah, they had it at the Roosevelt Hotel. Unfortunately, I think I can only go there for one day. But okay. So this is what happened. I think it was during the '98 convention that I was only there for 2 days. But on Sunday, I was able to go to Hollywood, California, and that's when the Egyptian Theater had the world premiere of Gamera 3. And understand, I have not seen Gamera 2 at this point. So it was really cool to see Gamera 3 on the big screen with an entire theater full of like-minded Godzilla fans. Back when Godzilla fans were a little more enthusiastic about this stuff than they are kind of now. No offense to anybody in the chat section. But no, it was awesome to see Gamera 3 on. Now my thoughts on Gamera 3 has kind of lessened in recent years, especially since I kind of prefer the Gamera Guardian Universe, Legion, and the Brave more so. But it was just a really cool experience, and seeing the whole audience get into it. And of course, there's a famous story that when Gamera and the Hypergauss are sort of firebombing Shinjuku, Kaneko, the director, he turned. It's like, why are they applauding all these innocent people being killed? And it's like, no, they're applauding the effort and the action sequences. They're Americans, Kaneko. Oh, okay.
He's coming back this year, so he might still have that question.
Yeah, it's funny too because I'm going back to G-Fest. He's going back to G-Fest. I bet if we shake hands, we'll merge into a singular being, like Time Cop.
I'm imagining it's oh god, what's that Stephen King Christopher Walken movie? I'm blanking. The Dead Zone.
You ever seen The Dead Zone? I shake his hand, Kaneko's like, the ice is gonna break. What ice? And it's like I get myself a snow cone and it ends tragically.
But how old were you? How old were you when you went to G-Fest, Raf? And were you pretty overwhelmed by it?
I was overwhelmed because it was the first time I was around other Godzilla fans, and other than one or two jerks here and there, it was a very positive experience because back then conventions were not as big of a deal as they are now, and this was a very simple mom and pop convention, kind of. So
well,
much, yeah.
Well, in the early iterations of G-Fest or G-Con, whatever it was called in the early times, John Rocco Roberto and J.D. Lees, who were the founder, and Guy Tucker, who were the three founders of G-Fest. It all formed out of J.D. Lees' G-Fan magazine. Yeah, they did the first two in Chicago, I think, in Arlington Heights, and then they moved it out to Los Angeles for a little bit, and then they moved it to New York for 1 year. And I think around 2004-ish, they decided on Chicago O'Hare being its permanent place. But it moved around quite a bit. And it's definitely changed over the years from just from me being there, and this will be my 10th G-Fest. Almost consecutively. I missed 1 year, but it's even changed a lot in the time that I've been going. So,
well, from the videos you showed me, it's gotten a lot more packed. Way more people have. Yeah, because I remember there was at least walking distance back on my G-Fest. Now today, it's you can't go to any convention without being so overwhelmingly packed. I don't know if that's a change in nerd culture becoming more mainstream or just...
Well, the hotel's pretty small. It's big enough, but it's pretty small, generally speaking. And most of G-Fest, the big parts of G-Fest that everybody crams to, is centralized to one hallway. That's where all the ballrooms are. That's where the dealer's room is. And then there's the stuff downstairs that the Artist Alley and the Independent Film Festival that they have down there, and the model room.
Right.
But yeah, and there's it's got to, I think they had an attendance of 3,000 last year, 2,000.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it gets pretty big.
Yeah, and I have a murderous habit of claustrophobia, so hopefully nothing bad happens when I'm there. Just cut the stock footage from Dead Alive with the guy killing all the zombies with a lawnmower.
Yeah,
take that you.
That might ruin the weekend, Raf.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were on a train of thought here.
Right. So Yeah, no, it was cool to yeah. So I did the G Fest in '98. Saw Gamera 3. That was a great way to end the weekend. I went to see. Then I went to the Roosevelt Hotel in '99. I think I was only able to attend one day though, because back then I didn't know about the train systems. I was too young to go by myself. And I think I was still in my mid-teens, or like I was in my mid-teens, I think. So I wouldn't. Yeah, it was so weird. I think I only reached my later teens when 2000 came around, because I remember that. Thank you, phone, for ruining this train of thought. Because I remember when I Godzilla 2000 came to theaters, that's when I kind of had my first date, and I took a girl to go see it, and thankfully she liked it, but I think she wanted to go see scary movies, so we ended up having a double feature.
Oh my
The
gosh. Well, that is wonderful, Raf. I would never. And again, not out of personal embarrassment, but yeah, I don't know if I would ever have the cojones to take a date to a Godzilla movie.
yeah, well,
Um,
thankfully she used to she was into like Japanese
oh, well, that's
weirdness.
good. That's
Yeah,
good.
and also she was a big fan of the guy who plays Katagiri. So
Oh,
like yeah, it's like we both bonded through our love through a movie called Moon Over Teo, because he plays a samurai in that. So
wow.
Katagiri. So Warrior King says, The Mystery of Fire Marsh Lake, a plesiosaur movie. Where can I find this? I will send you a link privately later, Warrior King. But yeah, the company that made that short movie is still in business, and they still sell copies of their various works. So in fact, I contacted them like a couple of nights ago, and I'm definitely going to send them a money order to get my own copy and make my obscure giant monster collection even more complete. Anyways, back on target. But yeah, the Roosevelt Hotel was interesting, although it was very small, and the Roosevelt Hotel wasn't exactly like the biggest convention imaginable. But it still had a cool vibe and atmosphere. I'm kind of wondering what this convention is going to be like. I'm a little afraid, because like a lot of videos you shown me was oh, and Riff the Witch says, send me that link too. Okay, I'll contact you both later. We all want plesiosaur movies. Now this live stream will be about plesiosaur movies. Brayton, who's your favorite plesiosaur from cinema?
Oh my god, don't put me on the spot, Raph.
Okay.
I like Gertie the dinosaur is not a plesiosaur, he's a brachiosaurus, isn't
Yes, but there is a brief cameo from a plesiosaur in the background, so we can
he? Oh,
count that
okay.
monster.
I don't know. I've never thought about who my favorite plesiosaur is.
What about the Legend of the Dinosaurs?
Oh, I don't think that's anybody's favorite anything, Raph. Sorry.
So now with that says, yeah, it's like, and then you and I, like as Godzilla fandom continued, like well into like modern days, like, you know, internet has gotten a lot easier. And I think that's how you and I met. We met mutually through like one of D-Man's live streams, and then from there it's like, you know, I want to get to know this weirdo some more. I'm like, I want to get to know this weirdo some more.
Yeah, I know that you, me, and the gang had a Skype chat like a few years back, and then we all converged. Andres, you and I, and Derek D-Man all did a live stream on his channel, and then like the night after that, you called me back on Skype, and like we had like a 5-hour conversation where we poured our life stories out to each other, and then it's just been downhill ever since.
Right. I should note though, a lot of the stuff I told you was complete lies. I never escaped from Alcatraz. I'm not the Birdman of Alcatraz at that.
I kind of figured that. I
Yeah.
wanted to make you happy and go.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Although, is it true you saved a bunch of like enslaved Indian children from the Temple of Doom?
I prefer not to comment on my past.
Okay, all right then.
Publicly, yeah.
Okay, so speaking of things we shouldn't comment more on, I do want to briefly talk about Godzilla '98. What do you honestly think about that movie now that we've had time to digest it?
Nowadays,
yeah.
What do I think of it? Well, here's the thing. Again, I never had, until the internet, I never had the baggage of being disappointed by them. Again, like my first Godzilla anything was a Godzilla '98 toy. That I still have, and I would take a picture of it, but like I don't want you to go through another technical snafu.
Actually, I think we can do it. Just send me a picture through. Where did you send the last picture? I can't find anywhere.
I don't know. I may have messed up and sent it I'm new to Google Hangouts. I don't use this very much.
Okay, if you want, just send it to me through Skype, and then I'll share it.
But no, yeah, that was my first Godzilla anything. Was a Godzilla Azilla toy that I still have.
Mhm.
So yeah, I didn't have the baggage of personal disappointment going to a theater and then being like, "That's not Godzilla." I saw the movie as a little kid,
They
and
lied to me.
I saw the movie as a little kid and was entertained enough by it. Years later, the internet came to power. The
Mhm.
internet came to power. Yeah, I discovered the internet and discovered that it wasn't a very well liked movie. And then I rewatched it again with some, age.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's not very good. I still don't think it's very good. I think it's very poorly, a very poorly made film. But yeah, I think that just comes along with making a movie that has a fandom attached to it,
Mhm.
where there's a lot of personal investment in it from a large group of people. And so its
Yeah.
reputation kind of gets trashed. But yeah, I don't think it's a good movie, but I don't really think it's I think if people look at it with perspective, it's not really worthy of all the hatred that it gets. And the Godzilla series has continued on just fine in spite of it. So
Yeah.
why care?
Yeah, that's the great thing about the Godzilla films. It's like if you don't like one, revisit another or wait for the
And
next
yeah,
one.
another
Yeah.
one will come along that you'll like. You just gotta
Exactly.
wait for it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I know we've had a bit of a bumpy road with your
Kind of
thoughts.
like presidents.
Yeah.
If you don't like one, just wait a while. One will come along. That's okay.
Yeah, it's a shame though that we can't vote the Planet Eater out of office. He's still there. So
Yeah. No.
yeah, whatever. So, but about Godzilla 98, rewatching the movie more often, like there was a time where the movie was very enjoyable for me even when I knew about the fan backlash against it. But as time went on, I came to realize it really is your typical kind of 90s movie. It has a flippant attitude about not just the source material, but just about the whole film in general. Because there are some like silly moments in it that wouldn't fly in any other context. Like, I think the most ridiculous scene has less to do about like Godzilla getting shot by missiles or like Mayor Ebert and Siskel fighting over chocolates than the scene where you have the one soldier who's like going through the underground chasm, like, say there's no monster here, and then the giant eyeball opens up behind him.
Well,
Like,
I just think my thing is I'm just not a big fan of American like big budget schlock like that.
mm-hmm,
Like I really don't like Independence Day.
mm-hmm,
So I just don't like that sort of Emmerich-y style of knockoff Spielberg schlocky crap. It's just not my thing. Um I don't know. It
yeah,
never it just doesn't appeal to me, but I don't have any, outward disdain for it.
yeah. I can understand it. It is a little insulting to the intelligence, especially when
Uh-huh.
like, what is it? Independence Day has enough seriousness and verisimilitude where you can kind of take it seriously on its own level. Even though when you have things like John Hirsch being John Hirsch and the most John Hirsch performance of John Hirsch's life, so throughout the whole
Well,
movie,
there are good actors in Independence Day too,
yes,
Jeff
yeah,
Goldblum,
exactly,
Will Smith.
yeah, and John Hirsch, because I wanted to say that word for a sixth time.
Uh-huh.
But the movie does take itself seriously enough that you can get on board onto the story, and Independence Day kind of holds up in that regards, at least for me. Godzilla 98, yeah, there's something wrong when you like hire half the actors from The Simpsons doing cheeky jokes about how a lizard can disappear in the middle of Manhattan. And it also doesn't help that, unlike Independence Day, Godzilla strangely seems limited in both its scope and its direction. It's like, especially when you have a lot of the action sequences in the fog or in the rain time. Although it doesn't get as bad as
Yeah, which Godzilla movie would never? I mean, which an American Godzilla movie would never do again, right? We'd never have that same
no,
problem.
there's examples of that, but it is funny because earlier I said a lot of Hollywood movies, they cover up their effect sequences in fog and darkness and rain to cover up the CGI defects, and yet you have movies like Pacific Rim where it is in the rain and in the darkness, but you can still have a clear picture of what's going on, and you're still given a spectacular spectacle. So I don't know. I guess it's not as simple or as cut as dry as just trying to save money by like doing the big budget Hollywood equivalent of like hiding your
Well,
monster
no,
in a
I'm sure.
dark
Yeah,
cave.
I'm sure it's that, and I think I'm sure it's a thing of it looks more dramatic in the rain and the darkness. and that it's
Yeah.
more visually stimulating. But
Yeah, so one of the problems I had with Man of Steel, it's like that movie was so they deliberately chose to make that movie so horrifically grim and like it's a movie that feels like it's covered in ash. That's how dark and gritty it is. So I don't know, but we're not here to talk about Man of Steel. We're here to talk about Godzilla. But no, the '98 Godzilla movie, it's kind of weakened for me, and I don't think I've given it a proper watch since in a couple of years. I do know John Reno is the best element of the whole movie, and I'm happy that the monster itself, while a kind of crappy interpretation of Godzilla, at least it ended up becoming a way better monster in like later media. I love the fact that not only does Zilla get a cameo in Final Wars, as insulting as it ends up being, but at least they gave the creature a decent rampage sequence before it finally faced off against Godzilla, and how the monster was incorporated in like some of the recent IDW comic books.
And he got his own little animated, or his son got his own little animated show.
Yeah, a movie an animated series that was a lot better than the movie in some regards, or at least offered a lot of really cool monsters of the week. So it's like my Skype profile is El Gusano Gigante, the giant worm. So, one of the of course, Godzilla '98 that led to Godzilla 2000. So that was I think the last real Godzilla movie in theaters until Shin Godzilla came along. Not counting the oddball Godzilla Film Festival here and there, which I had the honor of seeing in Los Angeles. And like I said, I took a girl out to that, and she actually enjoyed it, and we decided to do a double feature. So, which worked out great because usually on a date, a girl just wants to see one movie. Thankfully, we had the opportunities. She paid for one movie, I paid for the other, and we made a double feature. So,
you're lucky you got to see that in that was the Japanese Godzilla movie you got to see in theaters was Godzilla 2000.
Yeah, did you get a chance to see it in theaters?
I was 1 year old when Godzilla 2000 came out. I did not get a chance to see it in theaters.
Right. And if you did go to theaters, the stereo volume must have shook your little baby brain.
Yeah, I saw Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla at a theater at the Pickwick Theater in one of my first G-Fests. And then, but yeah, my first new Godzilla movie that I saw in a theater wasn't until Godzilla 2014. Yeah.
So now, speaking of Godzilla, well, it's we're going to be here all night talking about Godzilla movies. So do you kind of want to, I know some of the people in the chat section is interested in our clarified thoughts on the new Godzilla movie, but is there anything else you want to bring up Godzilla wise? Like your favorite Godzilla movies versus your least favorite Godzilla movies?
I am willing to talk about whatever you want to talk about, Raf.
Okay, then I think just for the heck of it, let's just kind of briefly touch upon our thoughts on the MonsterVerse Godzilla. Okay. We'll briefly touch upon Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, then we'll go into depth about Godzilla 2019. It's such a shame though that
Godzilla King of the Monsters 2 also in line with it's the second Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, much in the spirit of the second Godzilla versus Mothra movie, much in the same line as the second Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla movie.
Yes.
And, God.
Like I love Godzilla movies, but some of the titles are just annoying. It's like
I don't know what the alternative would be, what you would call it. You don't call it Godzilla 2 because that would just be all kinds of confusing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Godzilla 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Be a little more creative with your titling.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you call it, Raf? What would be the alternative?
I was actually about to mention that. Okay, Godzilla King of the Monsters, that's the most confusing title you could have, especially since there's at least 2 other Godzilla properties under that title. And Godzilla 2 wouldn't make sense because, there's already a bunch of Godzilla 2s. So, I don't know.
What are you talking about? There's one Godzilla other King of the Monsters movie, and there's only one other Godzilla 2, and that's Godzilla Raids Again.
There's Godzilla King of the Monsters, but that title was reused for the Marvel comic book series. I've been in conversations where people are like, "Wait, are you talking about the comic books? Raymond Burr was in the comic books? No, you idiot." So,
okay.
I don't know. So it does suck, but
anyway, I don't know what the alternative would be.
Yeah, I would have I would have gone a more elaborate route and done some like Godzilla Rise of the Golden Devil or something like that. Or I know that sounds a little too dramatic, but it would have worked a lot better than what we had. So since there's no activity in the chat section, I think I'm going to go back to the clip show for a little bit. So but yeah, well, what do you think Rise of the Golden Devil would have been a little much?
Yes, Raf. I think I don't know what the alternative would be. I don't know what someone else would call it. I wouldn't call it Ghidorah the three-headed monster 2. I wouldn't I don't know. But yeah, they gave their comic, or not their comic book tie-in things that I haven't read, Godzilla Awakening and the other thing they did for the second movie.
Yeah, I know there was Godzilla. Oh God.
I don't know if that's just like a thing on my part. It's just me being a very purist or whatever. But yeah, I don't like Godzilla comic books. Like, I'm not a big reader of those. Like, I don't like other Godzilla media, I guess. I don't know if that's weird, but I read like one of the Godzilla novel book things when I was younger, which had like the Bob Eggleton artwork on it, but the book wasn't very great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to. I think Godzilla, same thing kind of with Star Wars, though. Like, I like Star Wars comic books, but with like books and things like that, I think it's just such a visual thing that it doesn't connect with me the same way if I'm just reading it off of a page.
Yeah. Well, I will say this in defense of the Godzilla tie-in media. Thankfully, there's so little of it, because at least this isn't like Star Wars, where it's like there's so much contradictory, or even Doctor Who, where there's so much, or Star Trek, where there's so much contradictory stories and spin-offs to the main films that it becomes really confusing. And thankfully, a lot of the spin-off media is its own self-contained continuities, so you don't have to worry about everything, connecting back, if you will.
Yeah, I sure hate William Shatner's Godzilla novels, Raf.
You mean Titanosaurus Wars Part 1 and 4?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, I really hated that part where Titanosaurus is on the airplane and he sees a Hedorah on the wing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had to. Oh yeah. So I'm almost tempted to. Have you read the William Shatner Star Trek novels? But I remember this is Godzilla.
I've read 2 of them and they're not good. But anyway,
it's just him making out with like cat strippers throughout the whole book, isn't it?
Let's pretend that.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the Godzilla spinoff. Well, first off, I hate to say it, a lot of the Godzilla spinoff media isn't that good. Like, I had fun with the same novels you were talking about, but I remember that I wasn't a big fan of the Dark Horse Godzilla comics, because they were a weird mix of like way too depressing and grim 90s comics and way too silly and ridiculous 90s comics. Like, they had a whole like I know a lot of people hate this storyline, but I kind of tolerate it a little better. But they still had a storyline where a mad scientist and his army of criminals use a time machine to steal and plunder across history, with Godzilla as their version of Mongo from Blazing Saddles.
Oh no.
And of course that comic got a little ridiculous when they go to the future and introduce the concept of like robot maids or something. I won't get into detail, especially since I'm in Shoma. But yeah, it's like, even as a kid, it's like, okay, this is kind of silly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has given us some like pretty good animated shows. Although I'm one of the few people who generally likes the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon series. Well, I do. There's a lot of things.
Oh no, Billy, we better call Godzilla. Okay, man.
Here comes Wonder Lizard.
Sarazawa's got that lizard juice. Oh wait, no, that's not from the Hanna-Barbera thing.
It is kind of sad how some of the dialogue in the new Godzilla movie is a little reminiscent of the Hanna-Barbera one.
What about Larry, Curly, and Moe here?
Oh my goodness. But at the same time, I'm so happy that the Godzilla spin-off material is kind of easier to get into than, say, something as Star Trek or holy crap. And Riff the Witch says, also HB Godzilla rocks. I will eat anyone who argues. Riff the Witch, you are definitely a soulmate. So, Um,
Wait a minute, that's not Earth the Witch or Rift the Witch. That's the Earth Eater. Oh no.
he's eating all of San Francisco. What are we gonna do?
I like the Earth Eater. That's one that I'll abide by. But,
Yeah. It's any monster who looks like you can tell the Earth Eater just wants to be left alone and just wants to thoroughly eat.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will say about the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon. Even though when it was very low budget animation, the yeah,
Godzilla's walk cycle. Look
at my
belly.
I'm a coming. How you doing? Yeah, it's hilarious but I will say the monsters looked really cool. They're very bright and colorful. Hanna-Barbera was kind of used to making. Say what you will about Hanna-Barbera, they had some very colorful, unique looking villains in their shows. And not only that, but because it was done in animation, the animators were allowed to play around with the monsters a bit, give them like abilities and personalities that, however subtle they may be, you couldn't really easily have done on a live action television budget. So it's like I love how in like the first episode, the Firebird literally gets exhausted after fighting Godzilla for a while, and you can see
fighting
her just
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Raf. You mean screeching at each other, waving their appendages in the air?
Yeah, you're 3 hours later. Are you guys enjoying this recreation of the
and then you have Godzuki flying in for comic relief. Who then gets swatted away.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to do a whole podcast about the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, but I still like. First off, I hate to say it that a lot of Godzilla movies are judged by worse versions of the same thing. Like as much as people hate Godzilla's Revenge, it's so sad that we also live in the world that has Gamera Silver Monster or Space Warriors 2000 as the nadir to Godzilla's Revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, yeah, it suffers from a lot of the problems that Hanna-Barbera had. But at the same time, it's nowhere near as bad as like I think some of Scooby-Doo's worst seasons, or like, oh god, what's a really terrible Turbo Teen, or like some of like
I think Hanna-Barbera Godzilla was a lot better than the Rankin Bass King Kong cartoon.
That is true. It's like I can get a lot more enjoyment out of the Rankin Bass King Kong cartoon, which is ironic because there's nothing but King Kong images playing right now. As opposed, like, because the Rankin Bass Kong cartoon, first off, the animation was really low budget, even though when they outsourced to Japan to make it look good.
I will say though, I've always wanted a mashup of their theme songs together. Godzilla, King Kong.
Well, we got the the Godzilla versus Kong movie coming up. So
I don't know if that's a weird thing. I've always loved like cheesy themes. I think that's one thing. I never watched a lot of Ultraman, but I love like the Ultraman theme songs are always so great. Like and they randomly get stuck in my head at times. Like at times I'll just be humming the Ultraman Mebius theme song to myself. Just like as I'm going through my daily existence.
Yeah.
But they're great music. Great music with those cartoons there.
Yeah. So a Warrior King just said, I enjoy HB Godzilla 2. It is fun. It is a fun cartoon. While Godzilla can be annoying, he's far from being the worst nephew sidekick insert character out there. I will have to agree. Godzuki is a bit annoying, but I have more respect for Godzuki than I do have for like other Hanna-Barbera sidekick characters, especially since there's episodes where Godzuki like does his best to actually join the fight. Or it's like in the episode The Sub-Zero Terror, Godzuki, even though when he survives and he's okay, he's basically willing to sacrifice his life to save the others, and he does too, by like hiding Brock in like a little cavern while he gets frozen, willingly so, by one of the Yeti men. These are words coming out of my mouth, by the way.
Yeah.
And then the big lizard saved the black guy from the Yeti man. It was awesome. Oh my god. That's another thing I like about them.
I don't remember any of the names of the characters except Captain Majors.
Yeah. Captain Majors, Brock. I think the kid was called Eddie, and I don't know what the name of the the token female scientist was.
No.
So but yeah, I don't like calling things a guilty pleasure, but I especially since a lot of the things I love, I still find value in it. But it's like the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. It's a thing where, yeah, it's definitely not one of the best versions of Godzilla imaginable, but it's still a lot of fun. And I love how obviously they got all their ideas out of like weekly.
The kid was Pete. That's
Pete,
right.
yeah,
That's right.
Pete. And it's I still don't know who the name of the lady was. So, oh well.
And the lady was Aunt Quinn.
Aunt Quinn. Okay, all right. That's probably I don't remember names very well if they start with a Q. So. Oh yeah, Riff the Witch has confirmed that too. The kid was Pete and the lady was Aunt Quinn.
No, that's what I was. That's
okay,
what I was
all right. Thank you, Riff the Witch. Not to be considered with Rip the Win.
Anyways,
yeah, but yeah, no, I like the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon. I especially like how they got all their ideas, obviously, from like watching reruns of In Search of. It's like the lost city of Atlantis. Hey, let's make an episode based on Atlantis with a giant robot. So parallel universes. So let's do one about a city in the clouds. So that kind of nonsense. Yeah. So and of course undersea farming and exploration was big in the late 70s. So that's how you ended up with a lot of episodes involving sea monsters, but also a lot of the one episode with the cyborg whale, which was just an out of control. It's the equivalent of an out of control deep sea diving machine, but it's big in the size of a whale. So.
Well, you know what I always find interesting and historical about the Hanna-Barbera series? I think it, like Godzilla versus Megalon, was like America's most, represented exposure to Godzilla.
Yeah.
Because, Megalon kind of fell into public domain or whatever. At least the distributing rights in the US. So that was the one that was played all the time in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah, what people don't remember was that Godzilla vs. Megalon was a bit of a success when it was released in American theaters, especially considering some of the publicity and ballyhoo that was made around the movie, like Godzilla for President buttons and the poster, and of course that epic trailer. So.
Oh yeah.
And
I think Hanna-Barbera was similar because whenever you see Minya's son brought up, they always Minya, Godzilla's son brought up, everybody calls it Godzuki.
Yeah, even knowing that Godzilla's like Batman, he collects kids who aren't really his own. So
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's what annoys me a lot about like the general public's perception. It's like, where's Mrs. Godzilla? When did Godzilla
still ask
lay
that
an
question.
egg?
I know, that question because something had to lay that egg. It doesn't have to be Godzilla was involved with it, but something had to fucking poop that out. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, we know that there was another female Godzilla in the past, but as far as Godzilla himself goes, he just adopts a lot of these little kids. It's like the only Godzilla monster that's directly related to him is the American Godzilla's Bizarre Offsprings, as well as Godzuki being Godzilla's nephew, which brings up the even bigger question: who Godzilla has a sister and a husband, and a brother-in-law? Godzilla has a sister and a brother-in-law. I almost said Godzilla has a husband. I know. I know.
It is 2019, Raf.
Yes, yeah, and Rodan and Godzilla have always seemed very close.
Do they have like a thing going on?
They're just friends, okay.
It's a symbiotic relationship, Raf.
Right. So, oh my, but that is the funny thing. Godzilla just collects kids. I don't think he has a single kid that's really his own. Even the anime trilogy, it's that Godzilla FILMS is just a smaller. Oh,
as in the reviewer FILMS?
No. In the anime Godzilla, there are two Godzillas. There's the bigger.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it, Raf. I don't care.
Okay, all right. Anyways, speaking of which, I do want to bring this out of the way. Do you think it's okay being a member of DeviantArt and seeing a lot of the posts that are happening and the fan art? The fans have really gone in hard with this whole Godzilla Mothra shipping thing,
especially Andres. Andres has even said, "Oh, it's adorable," and I'm like, Andres, no, don't be a part of the problem. Don't do this.
Oh God, it's Andres. He said he's going to show up in G-Fest dressed up in a Mothra onesie, holding a Godzilla doll. What do you think about that?
I think you're making things up, Raf.
Yeah, like you and your Temple of Doom adventure. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I think that stuff is just it hurts.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. Godzilla and Mothra, despite being allies on occasion, they've never really been friends.
Godzilla's not friends with anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody he hangs around. It's just for convenience and to prove that he's the powerhouse in the troop.
Yeah. Although in the Showa series, he definitely for one thing, it was obvious.
Okay, here's my question.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Other than Ghidorah the three-headed monster, has Godzilla ever saved another monster that wasn't his son?
There was Jet Jaguar. Because
well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Yeah, the body language between these.
Well, but Jet Jaguar called him though. He went over there and he started following him already.
Yeah, but you still had scenes where Godzilla's trying to save Jet Jaguar out of the pits of flaming.
You never had a moment where Godzilla rammed his face first into a buzzsaw and bled out all over the camera. Raf.
Yeah, that is true. Poor Anglius, he gets the shaft in all those movies, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So, like you're right. Godzilla doesn't go out of his way to save other monsters, but at the same time, it's pretty obvious he does form friendships and obvious alliances with other monsters, even knowing they just met. It's like there was barely an interaction between Godzilla and King Caesar other than just the tag team match. But I think they really kind of like the interaction between Gamera and Jet Jaguar was definitely sincere and improved, even though obviously it was all done for laughs. But yeah, and Godzilla and Rodan, despite starting off as like schoolyard bullies, fighting each other, they did eventually become friends enough that they basically hung out with each other in suspended animation on Invasion of the Astro Monsters. But yeah, other than his son, I don't think he's really had a good relationship with other monsters. And it's funny too, because him and Mothra have always been very antagonistic, even during the few times where they do have to team up and fight against another monster.
Raf, why do you have 7 pictures in a row of the plant from Godzilla's Revenge grabbing a Chiro?
Okay.
Okay, you have like 13 in a row now, because some of them are just like scene by scene stills from the action happening, frame by frame.
Okay, I stumbled upon a Japanese website that had a bunch of pictures of the man-eater of Monster Island, which is the name of this plant monster. And I was like, oh, he's obscure enough. I might want to draw him one day. Save pictures. Boom. So
it's not a monster. It's the crook from the thing. It's just part of his dream.
Yes, but according to Toho, it also counts as a monster, and they made toys of it. So
I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah. Well, you did see it. There was a lot of images of the officially made ornament.
I didn't see that part. It just caught my eye that you're just taking frame by frame shots of Godzilla's Revenge and putting them on the screen now.
Yeah.
Anyway, please.
Yeah, but no, Mothra and Godzilla have never really been friends. They've been very loose allies, but they have always had an antagonistic relationship. And it's like that's one of the big problems about Final Wars. It's like, they're really not fighting alongside each other. They're just having their own separate battles. Who knows what Godzilla would have done once Monster X and Gigan were out of the picture.
Wait a minute. You're saying there are certain problems with Final Wars?
It's a slightly flawed movie.
So let me get this straight, Raf. Let me just try to understand this.
Okay, go on.
You're telling me you're telling me that you're gonna sit here and you're gonna say that a movie as fucking insane, ridiculous, MMA filled, and Don Fry filled, and phonetically edited, and with I don't know what money spent as Godzilla Final Wars, you're gonna tell me that is crazy?
It's a little on the silly side. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So I know it's no Godzilla's Revenge with its dark allegory of latchkey kids, but I had to say it. So.
Yeah.
All right. I love Final Wars. That's a movie that's grown on me better than Godzilla '98. But yeah, it gets a little funny sometimes.
Oh, I love Godzilla Final. I can watch that. If I was, that is one of my what would you say? One of my stranded on an island movies.
That would be the like you had like a handful of movies you could have to watch over and over again on a stranded island.
Yeah.
What would be the other ones?
Oh, good movies probably. Like one thing to say, I I don't want to say that I've grown out of Godzilla because that kind of sounds weird when I say that. But I'm definitely, it's definitely taken a, like the only thing I can compare it to, and to a much, these are much better degree because these are much better things. Kind of like with you and Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Like it was a thing that was very, very close to my heart when I was a little kid, and is always going to be a big part of my life. I'm just not like, and I've gotten into it a little more with like the research, with like the, Godzilla King of the Monsters coming out and everything. But yeah, I'm just not as huge into it as I once was. So yeah, that would probably be that, and Mechagodzilla would be the two Godzilla films I would take with me.
Right. The original Mechagodzilla from 74 and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla?
No, the original Mechagodzilla, and the two Godzilla movies I would take with me would be Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and Final Wars.
Right. So
I do like all the with the exception of Terror of Mechagodzilla. I do like all the Mechagodzilla movies.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, before we get into a whole Mechagodzilla rant, let's do you want to just talk about the Mechagodzilla movies, or do you want to move on to the Godzilla 2019?
We just go to 2019, I guess.
Okay, let's talk about Mechagodzilla before we move to 2019. I'm sorry, viewers, we're going to talk about because like thanks to you, I rediscovered the 74 Mechagodzilla movie. Like before, it's like it was always on my radar, but it wasn't anything major other than the movie that introduced us to Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
But after revisiting it, especially that one time with you, yeah, it's a fun movie. Of all the cheapy 70s Godzilla movies, that one is the most enjoyable. And it also shows you that even when there's no monsters on screen, you can still have a lot of fun with the Godzilla movies.
Oh, sure.
So because like the human characters are likable enough.
Yeah.
Of course, like we joked around last week.
And they have things to do.
Yeah.
They have their own story.
Yes, their own agendas, their own what's that term they use? God damn it. Not thrill or suspense, but it's something where agency. Their own agency. Oh god, sorry, I got hypnotized by this robot's fancy do. You thought you had good hair, Brayton. Look at Megaloman.
Oh my god.
Right. A Japanese superhero show made by Toho. But no, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla is a really good mix between slightly more serious adult spy fiction fantasy that Jun Fukuda was famous for, mixed with kind of just the fun Godzilla action scenes of the more kid-friendly 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but it's a very charming Godzilla movie. I can see why that was such a big success that they decided to try to do Mechagodzilla a second time with a more serious movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Terror Mechagodzilla, but my opinion, that's funny, my opinion of that movie has kind of swayed a lot in recent years. Like before, I always thought Terror Mechagodzilla was the superior of the two Mechagodzilla movies, but over time, it's kind of switched where I like Mechagodzilla 74 way more than Terror Mechagodzilla. And Terror Mechagodzilla, despite having very good production values, a more serious-minded script, and a sincere attempt to return to the glory days of the more serious Godzilla of the early 60s.
Yeah.
It's a little too portentous or pretentious. I'm probably getting our words wrong here or something. It's a little more serious, it's a little more darker, and it's a little less fun. And it's a shame too, because there's some elements of the movie I really do like. Like I love Titanosaurus. I think he's definitely worth the price of admission alone. And he's such a simplistic monster too, but it works very well. It's a good costume too. God, these Megaloman images are weird.
But no, yeah, I respect a lot of things about Terror of Mechagodzilla. You know, it being Ishiro Honda's last Godzilla movie, Akihiro Hirata being in it. Yeah, I just think it's a damning example about what I don't like in kaiju movies, or most movies in general, fantasy movies in general, is taking something that was fanciful and silly from the start and trying to bend it to make it more serious.
Right.
Same thing. I don't really care. That's why I kind of don't really care for the second two Gamera Heisei stuff. I just don't like that. It's just, maybe it's just a personal weird thing, but I don't like the philosophy of taking something that it's okay if it's silly. but taking something like that and trying to bend it to be more, oh, this is more adult now. I don't really like that practice. And with Terror of Mechagodzilla, that's how I kind of feel. They had like this great Roger Moore-esque James Bond flavor to Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and then they kind of, I don't know, I felt like and especially it being a direct sequel, like it being as closely tied of a sequel as any of the Showa movies were. Even then, though, not really. Terror of Mechagodzilla is a weird movie because it's a direct sequel, but none of the characters are back, and it really, the aliens from the black hole are, but they're really different.
Yeah, because before they were like these green apes in human form, and now they look like rejected versions of the Mysterians. These radiation scarred humans you barely saw.
Yeah,
so
that's a weird one. But no, I like all the other Mechagodzilla. Like Against Mechagodzilla is the one that I rediscovered recently, because that was the one that I had a negative perception on for the longest time.
Yeah,
but I watched that a couple weeks back and I loved it.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Again, these terrible titles. This is the Millennium era Godzilla movie from like 2002, I think. And yeah, no, I always liked it because, like you said, the human characters are very enjoyable. They're engaging and endearing enough that and it's so sad too about Godzilla movies. Even when we generally like the human characters, it's hard to remember their names because they're standing next to Megalon and Frankenstein and Mechagodzilla. It's like,
they're not the stars of the show.
Yeah. Even knowing that there's Godzilla movies with really good human subplots in them. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. I really like the human stuff going on in Biollante. I really like Godzilla 19. There's a lot of great human characters, and some of their subplots are as exciting as the monster stuff going on. I love the island adventure stuff going on in Sea Monster, but at the same time, they're human characters. They're it's forgivable if you don't remember them too well, especially their names, because you're not going to remember Jeffrey Gonzalez when he's running away from Gulala, the X from outer space.
One of the generic questions that we would get in audio synchronicity is, oh, what would you do if you directed a Godzilla movie or something like that? And I would say to myself, I don't know what I could do differently than what anybody else has done, but just to do it as an experiment and to try to do something different, I would do a Godzilla movie with no humans and just focus on the monsters being characters. Like, you ever see that animated movie Dinosaurs?
The Disney movie?
Yeah, I would do something fucking weird like that with the kaiju.
Oh,
I don't know.
Well, hey, Anguirus.
They're like talking to each other, having their own little adventure. There's a little monkey.
Gorosaurus wants to start a 3-legged race with the other monster. Oh yeah.
Hurry up.
Yeah. It's funny. I've always had it would be interesting to make a giant monster movie told completely from the view of the giant monster, but not do it as like a 2-hour fight scene. Do it like, like this, what is it? You could easily do a movie like
you could have human characters and everything, but I think it would be really cool to see it from the giant monster perspective.
Yeah. It would be like the giant monster equivalent of a Benji movie, or like or it's like, I don't want to use Milo or Otis because that movie had a really fucked up production history, but something like the old Disney movies where we followed the point of view of animals. Or if you wanted to be more bold, you could add some voiceovers and do I
wouldn't do that. I would do it experimental. Like, it would be no dialogue or anything. But that's the only thing I could think to do differently.
Like I would, if I could make my own Godzilla movie, I would definitely do one where the human sequences are as exciting as the monster sequences, and maybe try to find a way to tie the two more closely together. Like, one of the things I loved about the Mechagodzilla movies from the Showa era, that's 1974 to 75. Actually, the Showa era is from 54 to 75, but I'm just counting about
the Showa era. Technically, Raf is from 54 to 84.
Whatever, the first series of Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I love the fact that we would cut between the giant monster fight scenes and a fight scene that's happening on the ground with the human characters. And they do touch upon that a little bit with Final Wars. Unfortunately, the thing with Final Wars is that as fun of a movie as it is, if you're going there for monster action, there's so little of it compared to the kung fu fighting. Even if the kung fu fighting is a lot of fun, I would do a movie that's kind of perfectly balances the two or does a better job integrating it to such a point that you're not, because sadly the thing about monster movies is it doesn't matter if you have a good story with the human characters. If you have somebody who's just there for the monsters, they're going to complain. And then if you have somebody who doesn't give a shit about the monsters whatsoever, yeah, if they're not invested with the humans. So I would try to find a good middle ground. Like, you know, I'm not going to go into some of my original ideas, but that's that was one of the concepts behind Night of the Giant Monsters, which is a script I'm working on. And like, I would love to do like a remake of Sea Monster, but like keep
Good?
the human. Yes.
Except good.
Yeah, I like Sea Monster. I will defend that movie, but I would definitely turn up the monster quality portions to 11. So it's not like there'll be more monster fight scenes. There would be more action with the maybe even throw in a couple like James Bond type characters in there along with our island castaways, but everyone gets a fist fight while Godzilla's fighting not just the sea monster, but we'll throw in like Kamibas and Gizora in there or something.
Yeah.
So maybe
Know, that's my big. But I don't like Ebera. I'm sorry to say it. He's a big lobster. I don't know. I like the more creative stuff than just a giant lobster. Like I'm not a huge fan of Son of Godzilla. I'm not a big Spiga fan either, because you know, just a giant spider. I don't know. I like the more inventive things. But I can get why people like Sea Monster. That's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the idea that it's a giant monster movie, but you also have an island adventure, and that's really cool. And I like the characters in that, even though in that again, I don't remember any of their names except maybe Dio. Yeah.
Dio.
Yeah, Dio. Well, who doesn't forget about Dio? Never mind.
Godzilla couldn't forget about Dio.
Yeah. Now here's the question: as many people might not know or do know, Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster was originally supposed to be a vehicle for King Kong. It was supposed to be King Kong versus Ebera. Operation Robinson Crusoe was the original title. But Rankin Bass, who had control over the King Kong license at the time, thought it was an inferior product, and they really wanted to get. Oh God. Here I am talking about innocent King Kong, and there's all these disturbing images from Last Days of Planet Earth. God damn it!
Well, we're almost at the 3 hour and 30-minute mark, Raf. Should we talk about King of the Monsters?
Yeah. Let's let me just finish my thoughts about Okay, here's the question I had for you. Let me finish my thoughts here. Originally it was going to be a King Kong movie. Do you think it would have worked better had King Kong been in there in place of Godzilla?
Oh yeah, I don't think it would. Yeah, I think you could easily swap out. I think if you swapped out Godzilla with Kong, nothing in the movie would change. I think it would have made more sense.
Yeah, it would have made more sense why King Kong suddenly fancies this island girl as opposed to Godzilla, like, you know, hey baby, how you doing?
Yeah, why would Godzilla? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I know that maybe it was a last minute thing, but change the script. You know, don't have the love. You can easily take out this weird love interest scene.
Yeah, unless they were trying to be a little funny with the monster and have like Godzilla's starting to notice the human ladies.
Yeah, just Godzilla grunting at this poor girl.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah.
How do you like my impression of the Godzilla grunt, Ref? Remember those noises he'd make? He'd always do those weird, like, sea lion noises or whatever.
Yeah, especially when he's like calling his kid over. So it's like,
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we not to let this go any further, let's talk about Godzilla 2019 because there's a lot of disappointed people in the audience who probably was like, we came for that, we didn't come here.
A lot of disappointed people, all 6 of you.
Yeah, it's all 6 of you. Hopefully there'll be more views and repeats, but we'll see. Before we continue, I do want to thank everybody in the chat section. Thank you so much for coming and watching this with us, even though it's literally just two schmucks talking about Godzilla.
Our live stream isn't doing much worse than the recent Godzilla movie, like in viewership. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, just give us another 2 weeks. We'll make it to 400 views, okay?
We're really popular in China.
Yeah, China loves me.
China.
Yeah. Did you hear they're making a sequel? It's called Raf Enshohma Uprising. I'm sorry. They're going to take it to a more teen and centric route, so... Yeah. Okay. Jokes aside, so Godzilla 2014. It's been roughly 3 weeks since this movie aired.
2019.
Yeah, 2019. Godzilla 2 Rise of the Golden Devil with 3 heads. It's been in theaters for 3 weeks now. Now it's not a flop, but it's definitely underperforming. And as those good folks over at Red Letter Media has coined the term, it's a flop buster. It's not a failure, but it's not doing as well as it should be. Hence the term flop buster.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I've given some time to think about it, because when I did that original review, it was like at 4 a.m. in the morning. It's like I was just incoherently talking about behemoth, elephant monster.
Yeah, you read your little post where you called people who don't like the movie flippant wet blankets, and then you talked about news Mathukala. Yeah. It was a little more coherent though than your 2014 reviews, Raf.
Oh yeah,
Raf Enshohma's sleepy time ramblings.
Santi, a new person in the chat, says, I think it's bombing though. If it was bombing, it would be doing as poor a business as X-Men, as the current X-Men movie is.
I think blockbuster is the perfect term for it. It's the kind of movie that comes along and does okay, and then people forget about it 2 weeks after it comes out.
Yeah.
It's like it's like that's the reception. It's very it happened.
Yeah, and here's 2 things to consider. One, the big secret in Hollywood that nobody wants to talk about is, as long as a movie makes 400 million, it's considered a passable win. Not a major success, but it made its money back.
Has the movie made 400 million?
It's no, it's a little over.
So what you just did was completely
no. Right now the movie is at 347 100 million. So it still has 50 more million to go. But I think by the time the movie ends its theatrical run, it's going to do okay enough for it to be considered a passable win. So it's not bombing. Yes, I know, it's hilarious what I said.
I just love how you said. Here's the dirty secret: if it makes 400 million, it's a passable win. Has it made 400 million? Well, no. It's been out for several weeks, Raf. I don't think it's gonna pop up with another 50 million before it goes out.
Yeah. I don't know. Worldwide, it might do well, but at the same time, it dropped from first place in its opening week to 4th place on its second week, which is pretty bad. And now it's at 7th week. And if the movie has like remaining legs in theaters for the next 2 weeks, I think it'll be okay. And the international markets aren't done. But yeah, as long as the movie reaches 400 million, it's going to be okay. But at the same time, the only thing that upsets me about this is, for the longest time I was excited because we're still getting Godzilla versus Kong. I got to stop calling it King Kong versus Godzilla. That's the 62 version. We're still getting Godzilla versus Kong next year. We got to think of a better title for these movies. You and I got to go to Hollywood, and it's like, stop renaming everything the same.
Godzilla versus the big horny gorilla.
Big lizard monster takes on horny gorilla guy. So it's ironic. It's a weird coincidence I should say that, and we have pictures of the space beast man. God damn it! These pictures.
You have blasphemed so many times, right?
Yeah,
dropping GDs all over the place.
I know.
Anyway,
all right. Freaking Japanese mangas have betrayed me. Okay.
Do you think that's getting pushed back? I mean, it hasn't been officially
here's the thing. I was really looking forward to seeing it early next year in March.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, movies have been doing a lot better in the non-summer seasons than they have been in the summer seasons. But with that said, now I hear Warner Brothers is thinking of pushing the movie back. That's okay. But at the same time, considering how Warner Brothers likes to panic about their movies underperforming, hence the reason the whole debacle behind Justice League after Batman v Superman turned out to not be as successful as they wanted it to, especially amongst critics and audiences. I really hope we don't end up with like the Godzilla fan equivalent of like release the King Kong cut to the movie,
the Adam Wingard cut. Yeah. Here's my question. I don't mean this to be mean, but it's something that worries me more. Has Adam Wingard made anything that's good?
Sadly, I'm only familiar with his Death Note movie.
Me too. That's
Yeah,
it. And he's
yeah.
a very, I know that's the thing with Hollywood, you're making, picking young directors who they can manipulate. But
Yeah.
he doesn't have a very long filmography. He's only been
Yeah.
making films for like the last 5 years or so.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
maybe longer than like me.
yeah, yeah. I have not seen the
But
Death Note movie, but I heard the main problem with that movie was its script, less so than its direction. And Adam Wingard barely had anything to do with the script. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I'm just hoping things go well. Here's the thing.
But at the same time, Michael Dougherty wrote the script for King of the Monsters.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, the script being an issue has been a continuing theme through the MonsterVerse. Not the greatest scripts in the world.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. And it's a shame too, because I thought the scripts, despite all their flaws and what fans might think otherwise, Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island had pretty strong scripts and stories behind them with some decent human characters. Well, Kong.
Well, I like the thing I love about Kong Skull Island is doesn't have anything to do with the script so much as the execution.
Do you think
with 2014, it's kind of the same thing, even to a bigger extent, where I still liked 2014, I still like a lot, but yeah, the story is very
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the execution is one problem, because 2014, there's a lot of things about that movie I like, and it's grown on me a lot recently. But at the same time, it suffers from me. It's like, it's okay to kind of turn the camera away from the monster action every once in a while, but when you do it to such an extent that it feels like you're trolling the audience, regardless if that was your intent or not, it does get a little annoying. And it's like, and not only that, but it's like when you get rid of Bryan Cranston, which I think was the main reason a lot of people went to the movies in the first place, it really is disappointing, because Bryan Cranston, I love the guy, and he needs a better movie. It's like he keeps showing in movies that underperform or don't, or people just instantly forget about.
That whole movie was just a giant marketing lies, because yeah, he was the one who was in all the trailers and promoted as being like the star, Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
He's the one who was doing all the voiceovers and
yeah, and I was really looking forward to Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe join forces and kicking Muto ass. So, which didn't happen, but so well, no. How I wish I had the abilities and budget to make a short film where it's like Ken Watanabe and Bryan Cranston battles the Mutos like the mutants did to Ibra and Godzilla Final Wars.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because that was like one of the best scenes from Final Wars, Ibra's little battle.
I'm sorry, I'm a vegetarian.
But with that says, yeah, Godzilla 2014 is flawed, but it also has some, for all the flaws it has some really good stuff in it. Like the sound design is great. I like the Mutos. They've grown on me a lot as monsters. And I think our very own Riff Witch herself has stated that the Mutos, they weren't really bad guys. They were just doing what naturally came to them. And unfortunately, what naturally came to them was going to threaten the rest of the world, especially since they kind of made it more clear in the recent Godzilla comic, Godzilla Awakening, I think it's called. Or was it?
Godzilla Awakening was the 2014.
Then what's the name of the new comic? Godzilla?
I have no idea.
Godzilla Aftermath. I almost called it Godzilla Apocalypse. Like that movie, like that comic made it clear that the Mutos, they don't mean to do harm, but unfortunately their evolution makes it impossible for them to live in harmony with other creatures, because eventually they just overpopulate and then fight amongst each other until one Muto survives and becomes the Muto Prime. So it's like the Gauss situation in the Gamma movies. But I like the Mutos, and not only that, but that movie really did a good sense of feeling the scale of how large these monsters are, and they were very consistent with the effects, how little you saw of them. And Kong Skull Island, I just adore that movie immensely. I think of the three MonsterVerse movies, I think that's the strongest of the three of them. And it definitely took the bad taste out of my mouth after Peter Jackson's 2005 epic "We're on a Damn Boat," co-starring King Kong. But yeah, getting to this, the story for this new movie does feel a little rushed. And from what Michael Dougherty says, the DVD release is supposed to feature more inserted human scenes, so the movie returns to its originally planned pace. But it does feel a little bit. It does feel a little kind of haphazardly done. The new movie, as far as the pacing and human characters go.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, well, for you, when you first saw Godzilla King of the Monsters, you didn't much care for it on your first viewing.
I was very angry.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie, and I'm angry in a disappointed kind of way, not angry in the Shin Godzilla kind of way, where I was fundamentally like destroyed by Shin Godzilla. This one I was just really disappointed the first time I saw it.
Right.
I've seen it 3 more times, and I will say this: I am okay with it. It's still definitely my least favorite of the 3 MonsterVerse at the moment. Again, it's one of those, I keep telling you guys, it's one of those things that I'm gonna have to let sit for a while.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm not a person who likes it, but I'm okay with it. Like, it's kind of, again, it's very middle of the road Godzilla movie for me. Like, I would put it in the same level of stuff like I don't know, Sea Monster, or what are some other middle of the road Godzilla movies? Like Monster Zero is one that I'm okay with.
Right.
Destroy All Monsters. You know, I don't dislike it anymore. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies where I think it's definitely gonna benefit from repeat. If you're someone who doesn't like it, I think it benefits from repeat viewing.
Yeah, and sadly, a lot of people in the general public, first off, they're not Godzilla fans. It's okay; it's their own deal. So yeah, if they just watch this movie one time, I think they're not going to enjoy it. And like I said, both as like, it feels like this movie feels like a Michael Bay Transformers movie. If a Michael Bay's Transformer movie with still having the same aesthetics visually, but it was actually done well. Like Red Letter Media touched upon this. Like, it's a similar big, bombastic, blusterous Hollywood summer movie in the same vein as the Michael Bay Transformer movies, but it thankfully gets rid of all the stuff that would make it horrible. Like, the comic relief characters are not that jarring. Like, say what you will about.
I don't know. I think that's where because the common thing I hear even amongst like our friends like Andres and people like that and the SOS people, like they'll use the thing of like, when they're trying to rationalize people who don't like it, they'll be like, if you like, more of the serious Godzilla films, you probably won't like this. But if you're more someone who likes, movies like Godzilla Final Wars and the more lighthearted stuff, you'll probably enjoy it. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who love the zany crap. That's my thing. That's my preferred kaiju jazz. That said, the reason I think there's the disconnect is this movie feels like that, but interpreted in a very American blockbuster sort of sense. Like, I don't know. It's just a weird feeling for me that I get. It doesn't. I don't want to use the term not genuine, because I know it comes from a really, Michael Dougherty is a really cool guy, and everybody who was involved with it seemed to have wanted to be involved with it.
Yeah. Their hearts were in the right place, and I appreciate them. They're all good chaps.
It just feels like a Godzilla movie interpreted through that Michael Bay Roland Emmerich lens. Like, it was a much better Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie is what it feels like.
Yeah, or a much better Transformers movies in the case of Michael Bay.
So I don't know. I think that's the thing where that's the disconnect for me. I like that more zany, out there, fanciful kind of Godzilla movie, but this just feels, I don't know if the term is like too American for me. Like, it feels like too paint by numbers American blockbuster.
Yeah, it's not as extremely as Americanized as what ended up with Godzilla 98, because there was a movie where they bought the property, but they were so terrified of its Japanese origins, they got as far away from as possible, and you ended up with Jurassic Park 4, Electric Boogaloo. But you're absolutely right. This does feel like an Americanized Godzilla. For one thing, they handle the subject matter of radiation a little flippantly, because like first off, like every monster, like I don't like the idea that every Titan in this movie is radioactive, even Mothra and the Behemoth. It's like that's the great thing about the old Godzilla movies. Yes, some of the monsters lived on radiation, some of them were born from radiation, but a lot of them were just big freaking animals that just happened to exist. It's like, Kong was just a giant gorilla who happened to live on the south of the island. Ebra's origins are kept ambiguous. Is he just a giant lobster that lived there? It's like, what is it? Godzilla vs. Son of Godzilla. I love the fact that the Kamacuras were just like already oversized mantises that got bigger because of radiation. But Kumanga has always been a giant spider that's lived on the island, and it didn't care about the radiation. It just was just sleeping the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does kind of annoy me that all these monsters are now radioactive. And it kind of takes away kind of the neat variety and the supernatural kitchen sink that was always one of the elements I loved about Japanese monster movies. And not only that, but it's like the fact that they treat radiation so kind of lightheartedly. Like there's like one element that would work great in a serious, dark, and scary Godzilla movie where it turns out whenever these giant monsters attack the city is so contaminated you can't go back to it. And that's a great idea. And I think they even touch upon that in the novels
here
yeah.
it's the opposite. Whenever a kaiju or a titan comes along, everything gets better.
Yeah, the plants grow back, and apparently the cities aren't that radioactive enough. But why the hell won't they let anybody back into like Los Angeles or something? It's like, you know, that place has been irradiated.
San Francisco, or
not just San Francisco, but they also give lip service to Las Vegas being a completely abandoned.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like, yeah, it makes the plants better, which is both kind of based on a fact, but also kind of a lie too, because radiation does affect things negatively on genetic level. That's why so many insects in Chernobyl, despite being accustomed to the radiation, are still crippled by it. And here it's like, yeah, it's like not only like, yeah, the radiation supposedly makes things better, but at the same time, no humans are allowed to go back to the city. In real life, people would go back to these cities, regardless, because that's a lot of people to be displaced by a giant monster attack. And I think Pacific Rim did a better job at doing a world infected by giant monsters, because yeah, if giant monsters were a common occurrence, people would move inland, and then like the beachfront property would be home to homeless people and lower classes. And for lack of a better term, I hate using this classism stuff. By the way, Warrior King says the name of the comic book we were thinking of was Godzilla Aftershock. Thank you. Here we were calling it Godzilla Aftermath, Godzilla Apocalypse, whatever. So yeah, and they don't and radiation is a pretty fucking scary thing. I'm happy we live in a world where at the same time we get this fun, silly Godzilla movie that treats radiation as a minor
how many nukes do you have?
Let's open the closet.
He says this to Dr. Serizawa, whose father died in Hiroshima, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, but okay, what I was going to say was, yeah, we have this rather ridiculous kind of lighthearted movie about giant, radiation usage. But thankfully, at the same time, the public is well aware of Chernobyl, the miniseries, and a lot of the horrible things that happened in real life, despite how they had to condense some of the histories there. So it's nice to know the public isn't too blinded by the big movie in theaters right now as far as like real world facts go. But at the same time, I wish they would have handled it a little better. It's like, it's a little, I don't know, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because I think somebody made a good video about how the threat of radiation and pollution surrounding these monsters are taken more seriously in the Japanese films, while in the American movies it's just kind of paid lip service and we just move on to the wacky action scenes. And speaking of which, yeah, there are some really awesome moments in this movie. I love King Ghidorah's head reforming after it got bitten off by Godzilla. I love Rodan's appearance in this movie is like the best part of the movie, I think, as far as monster act.
Oh, his first appearance. Oh yeah. Oh, and the dog fight thing with the chase.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I love, like, I'm disappointed they didn't use the classic Rodan theme, but that music is also real, like, through everything about that scene, it works so great.
And I don't
and it's so like tense and like, oh, get to the cloud of smoke, get to the cloud of smoke.
Yeah, and when they get to the cloud of smoke, there's King Ghidorah waiting for them.
Yeah,
no, that scene is great.
What is it like? 30 seconds till Monster Zero.
Yeah, there's a wolf at the front. To quote Monster Zero, we have a wolf at the front door and a tiger in the back.
I think like the perfect way I can just describe it is going back to what I was saying earlier. It feels like someone handed Roland Emmerich a Shinichi Sekizawa script and forced him to follow it. and like forced him to follow it, like he couldn't do
Yeah.
any of his. Oh, I want to make Godzilla like a panther. No, you have to follow this word for word. And this is the movie that we get.
I love your impression of Roland Emmerich, by the way. So
Yeah, that's what he sounds like.
I want to have the chocolate, mommy. No, Augustus. I mean, Roland Emmerich. No chocolate for now.
I want to. God, maybe Godzilla likes fish. He likes fish.
Right. I know Dean Devlin has kind of like apologized to the publics for like Godzilla's underwhelmingness, and he gets why fans were upset. But Roland Emmerich's like, no, my version is better, and it's a shame too because I saw Independence Day Resurgence recently. It's not a good movie. It's kind of shitty, but the giant monster sequences in it is hands down awesome. And it's like, Roland, where was this when you were making Godzilla? Come on, man.
I wanted to put in more Jurassic Park ripoff. I love Jurassic Park.
We get it.
Jurassic Park is frightening in the dark.
They left a cake out to the rain.
But Roland, what about the atomic horror? No. I love French bagel joke or croissant joke. French coffee joke.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce that we have Roland Emmerich himself to join us in our live stream. What do you have to say about eight-legged freaks, you freak?
My name is Roland Emmerich, and I'm sorry.
I've been a naughty boy.
No, but do you understand what I mean with that analogy? Though it just feels like someone handed Roland Emmerich a Shinichi Sekizawa script and made him follow it like word for word.
Yeah. And somehow it kind of worked in the end, kind of.
It kind of works. Yeah, it's the thing. It's the thing I can see myself liking, given some time. I'm not at that point now, but I can see myself coming around to it.
You know, your opinion, your reactions and history, however brief, 3 weeks old, with Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019 is very similar to my experiences with Godzilla Final Wars, because I was lucky enough to be invited to go see Godzilla Final Wars through Keith Aiken, the guy who founded Sci-Fi Japan and also does the audio commentary for Terra Mechagodzilla. He was also a storyboard artist on Godzilla series. I haven't heard back from the guy in ages, but I know he's still around. And he was very kind to actually get me a pass to the Chinese Man's Theater world premiere of Godzilla Final Wars. That was the same day that they revealed the Godzilla Walk of Fame star on the Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, with the guy in the Godzilla suit.
Yes, exactly. Actually, not just any guy. It was the guy who
played. It was Tom Kitagawa.
Yeah, Tom Kitagawa dressed up as the Godzilla 2014 Final Wars Godzilla.
2004, Raf. 2004.
Yes, 2004. Thank you. God damn it! All these Godzilla movies. Anyways, so I got a chance to see Godzilla 2014 at the Mann's Chinese Theater in the big main theater, the one where they hold all the film premieres for. And it looked great. It was a great experience, but the movie itself was lacking. It left a lot to be desired. To me, Godzilla Final Wars, that first viewing, it was like you're being invited to somebody's 50th anniversary and you're expecting it to be a good, awesome party, and when you get there, it's just a bunch of guys around the fireplace drinking beers with fireworks.
Your experience with that is very similar to mine, because my disappointment wasn't a Shin Godzilla disappointment that I still have, which is like, oh god, it was more like a what was my reaction, like what?
Yeah, it's like, what? This is what I'm getting.
And I've come around. I really have come around to it upon revisiting it. It's harmless. I can't dislike it anymore.
Well,
I think it's one of those movies that you kind of have to be in the right like frame of mind to watch. But I can see both sides. I can see why someone like Patrick really despises it, and that was mostly my feelings the first time I saw it. But I can also see where someone like Andres really likes the movie.
No, for like getting back to Final Wars, it's grown on me. I now accept it as just a fun time hanging out with friends with beer. And the movie is a lot of fun. It's like, it's one of those Godzilla movies that if it happens to be playing on like Stars Network, I will sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
or just have it play in the background. And it is fun. And even though when it has its own flaws, like a kind of a weak script written by somebody who didn't give it, who obviously was like too enamored with like American action movies, but at the same time, it also has some elements that are great. The monster fight scenes, however brief, are a lot of fun. I like the monster redesigns. I love the fact that they make Godzilla so slender, and that, you know, he could basically kick the ass of a Power Ranger if he want, because he's being played by a former Power Ranger. Don Fry, like at first, like in the first viewing, it's like, really, is this the performance he's going with? But now it's like,
now I look at it, yeah, Don
Yeah.
Fry is the heart of Godzilla. I think that's my theory. I think Godzilla Final Wars.
I'm
I
the
think-
heart.
Listen, kid, there's two things you don't know about this body. Number one is me, and I'm the heart. No, I think, yeah, that's my own little weird theory. As crazy and as out there and all the crap that's going on in Godzilla Final Wars, I'm under this very minority opinion that if Don Fry isn't in that film, the entire operation falls apart.
Well, I
Because
think, yeah,
I think he just represents represents the earnestness of it. Like that's the thing.
yes, that's
don't
a good
think-
way to put it.
I don't think Final Wars is a pretentious movie at all. I think it's
Yeah.
a very earnest. It is what it is movie.
Right.
Like I don't think it comes
it
at
is
it
what
with
it is.
yeah, it doesn't come out with any like pretentious like, oh, allegorical like meaning or anything. Like it's just here it is. Here's all over your face. Here it comes. And yeah, I think that's the one thing I think there's comparing it with 2019, because I think the films are somewhat comparable. With King of the Monsters 2019, I think that's the problem for me, where it tries to have this bigger message. Like it tries to have like the more serious stuff with like
right.
the whole family and the whole mentality of human extinction, whatever that you see in every movie these days.
Yeah.
Where it kind of drags it down a little bit for me, because they're as weird and wacky as it is, there's also this like foreboding, oh, this is bigger than all of us kind of message to it. That I don't really care for. But yeah, I think if Don Fry was in King of the Monsters, I would be like, okay, I accept you now. You welcome into my life.
Well, here's the funny, like Don Fry, not only in addition to him being the heart of the movie, but I think he's like the friendly maitre d' that takes your hands and brings you into this insane world.
It's
Come
kind
this
of
way to
true.
your table, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold your hand. That's what it's kind of like. It's kind of like, yeah, he's kind of holding your hand through this weird haunted house of an adventure that you're going on, that you don't know what's inside.
Yeah, and he's right there ready to kick the ass of any ghoul or zillion that shows up to ruin it.
I'm gonna kick that auxilian kid's ass.
But first, I'm gonna check out these zombies. Just punches their heads right off. And it's funny too, because I remember my brother Miguel, or better known as Gonzo the Gray online. Damn it, I'm so terrible at like revealing people's real names. When he first saw Final Wars, I was afraid that he wasn't enjoying it. Like he was just kind of like alienated by this bizarre movie. And then he waited for me to come over to his seat, and it's like, what's up, what's up, Miguel? And it's like, who's the big guy? Who's the big brawny guy? It's like, oh, that's Don Frey. He's playing Commander Gordon. He's cool.
he just oozes that sort of American, all-American coolness.
Yeah. Now
it makes the whole thing go down easier.
Yeah. Now, sadly, there's no gigantic Don Fry style character in Godzilla King of the Monsters, as much as we would love. But it still has like a lot of really good actors that we love, like our friend Charles Dance, master of the dancing dance.
We've opened Travolta's box, and no, we've opened Travolta's boogie box, and there's no closing it now.
Oh God, it's like, I don't know if that meme's shown up throughout the night, but whatever. But yeah, it's like we have like there's a lot of actors in there, and like even though when their characters aren't that well developed and they are pretty two-dimensional, they're solid and serviceable enough that you can still enjoy this adventure with them. It's like that one scientist guy, played by the one who's
Bradley Whitford.
He's really grown on me. I think I really enjoyed his character because
he's the closest to a Don Fry that I have in the movie.
Yeah, and
upon my initial viewing, I hated everybody in the movie. now I still I don't hate them anymore, but it's still kind of like I'm not a big fan of the dad. I know everybody says, "Oh, he's as good as Bryan Cranston," but to me, it's just a lot of he whispers very intensely, and that's kind of the only thing he's got going on.
Yeah. Well, now of course they have a key to your menagerie of horror. That was a good line, though. I gotta admit.
Yeah.
No.
I want you to kill all these things, especially that one. It's kind of Harrison Ford-esque at points, where it's just like that intense whispering and pointing.
Yeah, and it's a shame too because we've seen this guy be a lot of fun in a giant monster movie before. He's one of the best things about the Peter Jackson Kong movie.
Yeah.
It's like, and I love that character in that movie because he's a coward and a weenie, but at the end he still ends up being the adventurer that he always dreamed of being. But he also has the best exit of any character in any movie, where he's there at the stage, he sees Kong starting to rile up, and having lived through Skull Island, he just slowly walks away. We never see his character again.
Yeah.
So I escaped from the dog and gorilla show.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Whitford's character as a scientist, I think his character's name is Steve. I don't. Again, that's the unfortunate thing about Godzilla movies, ladies and gentlemen.
Many like this definitely feels there's so many characters in this movie, and they don't have a lot to do other than just like exposit dialogue.
And it's a shame too because a lot of these characters have like really good. Like had they this movie been given time to breathe and maybe with a better script, these characters really stand out. I like the lead army guy who goes on the field. I like a lot of the very scientists. I love the idea that they did the Mothra twin thing with this new character. So, but yeah, no, the Stanley Whitford character, he's a lot of fun. Especially, I love that scene where he just like Godzilla's doing the intimidation thing, and
that's the best scene in the movie, I think.
Yeah, it's like
that and Rodan's like appearance are like my two standout things.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I kind of wish they, like, I know they probably did the whole darkness water thing to try to like obscure the monsters and make it look cool, but I really wish Mothra had more time just to present herself outside the waterfall, and we've heard more of that wonderful music. So that's another thing I love about this movie. Like, I know a lot of people, especially, like, they don't like Mothra. They think she's way too.
We couldn't get the Mothra song. I mean, we couldn't get the singing though with the Mothra song, especially when there's so much like singing and sore sore. The whole movie we couldn't get Masura.
That would have been like I that's one of the things we talked about, like one of the guilty pleasures we love about the Godzilla movies of old, like Godzilla or other Japanese monster movies, that they would be hidden musicals. All of a sudden there's a musical number that breaks out in the middle of the movie, whether it be Mothra's natives praying to her while doing a dance sequence, or like the H-Man takes place. Or it's like Godzilla versus King Kong versus Godzilla, the H-Man, even Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla had like a random musical sequence out of nowhere.
Well, it's weird. Like, I know that everybody was like really upset or like had mixed feelings on like the chanting in the soundtrack or whatever. I want to say that's another highlight is I think Bear McCreary is up there now with my favorite Godzilla composers.
Oh, you want to hear something? You want to hear something hilarious?
What's that?
Every time I've seen this movie 5 times now, both with friends and by myself at the movie theater. And every time I go use the restroom or go refill my drink after the movie, I always hear one or two people, whether it be little kids or adults, humming the Godzilla theme song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like even like on the day when I went
there are some moments in the movie that are like totally fuck yeah moments. Like when Godzilla just like it breathes his fire and knocks Ghidorah like head over ass, like and then you hear the Showa roar immediately followed by the theme song. That's like a moment.
Yeah, or Godzilla coming in with the jets as he goes face against Ghidorah. Oh my!
He's like a boxer. He's just like shifting along with his weight. Like,
exactly. So yeah,
that's a total how you doing moment right there.
How you doing? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But no. Yeah. There's like McCreary's music is fantastic. Even like the Toho callbacks or the Ifukube callbacks are wonderful. Like there's the scene where Godzilla comes up like and is facing like the submarine and everything. Like that's just like a total tribute to the original Godzilla theme because you get the da da dun da da dun and the da 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 da, and then you get like a little bit of the from the Destroya soundtrack, the Requiem,
Mhm.
where it's kind of like da 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 at the end. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Rodan music is terrific. With when the chase scene with Rodan. And a lot of people were complaining about the chanting, but I kind of like that's one thing. Ifukube didn't do a lot of chanting like
Uh-huh.
he did in the earlier movies, like
Yes.
Ron, Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra.
Right.
But usually most of his stuff was kind of just brass and string heavy. I
Mhm.
like the chanting. It's primal. It fits.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, my only complaint about the music is the presence of the chanting goes a little too stereotypical Japanese, because whenever any Hollywood movie does something Japanese related, you get the classical drums and it's like it's a little on the nose. But here it works, especially since Michael Dougherty and I think in turn Brer McCree, who sounds like one of the cast members of John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
It's like Brer McCree, we need to use music to get rid of the thing.
Yes.
Right. Then he just destroys a chess computer for no reason. You got it. No, the thing about like the music, I think it works beautifully because one of the big elements they're trying to do with this movie is make the monsters feel like mythical creatures, like these are the legendary gods of old. And I think the music complements that beautifully, especially using some of the older Godzilla themes, even though that was mostly done as fan service. But you're right, when Mothra spreads her wings out of the waterfall and you hear that great
it's
classic,
beautiful. Yeah, and then
yeah.
I feel like Brooks in the background, who's just like, he's just like smiling big with his arms.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it's great too because we know at this point that Mothra is definitely a good guy. She might be a giant monster who accidentally knocks over buildings and cars and kills people by accident, but she is ultimately on the side of the people of Earth, monster and human alike. So I love the fact that that scene comes right after a all is lost moment in the movie where Ghidorah is victorious, Godzilla, the Wonder Lizard is down for the count. Rodan has bowed to his new master, looking like the Chamberlain from the Dark Crystal.
That's the thing I don't like. Like
Yeah,
I don't like the bitchification of Rodan. Really.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. But it's like Ghidorah has awakened all the other monsters around the Earth just by screaming loudly, and it looks like the world is doomed. And then we cut back to Mexico or China, or wherever the Temple of the Moth is located, and Mothra is here. So there's hope. Godzilla's girl is here. Oh. Yeah, I don't like the idea that Godzilla and Mothra are now officially an item, but it is cool that they are officially friends now. So, and I do like what little interaction they have. It's obvious that Mothra cares about Godzilla and Godzilla cares about Mothra. So, as opposed to the complete lack of interaction in other movies. But yeah, that's another reason why I love that scene so much. And about Rodan, though, yeah, it's like,
the one thing that would, and I know this sounds really weird and cheesy, and this would be a cheesy moment, but the one thing that would save the movie for me, even upon my initial reviewing, I would be like, because Rodan is my second favorite kaiju after Godzilla.
Right.
The one thing that would have been great is if in the final battle he had made the choice, like there was a character moment where he made the choice to fight alongside Godzilla and Mothra. That would have been cool. Like like after Ghidorah like is going in for the kill on Godzilla, or after he drops him, like Rodan somehow catches Godzilla and like gets him to safety somehow. I don't know. I just thought making Rodan kind of the follow whoever's in charge kind of character was kind of. I think it would have been great if you had done that where Rodan turns at the end, makes a face turn.
Yeah.
And
like I think realistically you could get away with a funny scene where Mothra literally beats some sense into Rodan, and Rodan decides, I'm gonna join these two guys, especially it's 3 against 1 or 3 against 3.
But yeah, that would have been the great moment for me, is having Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla fight together against it would have been cool.
Yeah, and it does kind of suck that Mothra is kind of taken out a little. Is it okay to talk about spoilers since the movie's been in theaters for 3 weeks?
3 weeks? It's been 3 weeks already?
Well, this is the start of the 3rd week, believe it or not. So
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, they'll get to spoilers.
I think every Godzilla fan has seen it by this point.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But even then, it's like it's going to play different than how I describe it. But I don't like that Mothra gets taken out so quickly in the movie. I wish she stayed around a little longer to assist Godzilla, especially after defeating Rodan in the most Disney-ish way imaginable.
Yeah, with the classic Disney falling death, Disney villain falling sequence. With Rodan comically falling to the ground in slow motion.
Right. It's like, I think you said it best. It's like, for crying out loud, the guy has wings.
What are you doing? You have wings.
Yeah, this makes no damn sense whatsoever. Oh my goodness. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's funny, Rodan has the best scenes, but yeah, his character does kind of take a back seat to the other monsters. And like I said, he, like, that final scene where all the final admittedly ridiculous sequence where all the other monsters have gathered for Godzilla's coronation, and there's Rodan with like literally like, yes. And Rodan gives like that smirk. It's like, I'm gonna serve you now. It's like, I know I've made the comparisons to the Chamberlain from the Jim Henson movie The Dark Crystal, because that's how Rodan looks like. He looks like the Chamberlain sketch ski, it's like, but some people have also said that Rodan feels like Starscream in this movie. And I think that's a more apt description. So what did you think? What did you think of I'm going to let you talk for a little bit because I have a little dog that wants to go outside. But what did you think of the newer monsters that were introduced, or what, just share whatever element you can think of
about the newer monsters that were introduced? I don't know. They weren't really given enough. They weren't really given enough time for me to find anyone particularly amazing. I do like Behemoth simply for the fact that I like the introduction of more mammalian kaiju, because every giant monster in Hollywood these days is based in some way off of an insect theme. Cloverfield is kind of insectoid with the long spindly limbs. The Mutos are kind of spider-like. The Super 8 thing was kind of every monster looks the same, so it's nice to have a woolly mammoth that kind of sticks out from the bunch.
Yeah. Here's a quick question for you. Now that the Art of Godzilla book is out and we have a little more information about these monsters, Michael Dougherty originally just wanted Behemoth to be a full-on giant mammoth with like forests growing out of its legs. Do you think we were better off with like the weirder giant sloth mammoth design we got at the end?
I don't know if it would be any different, but I just know that I like it. I like him. He's kind of slow. He's lumbering. He's kind of cute. I like him.
Yeah, and it's like, as much as I know a lot of current Godzilla fans prefer the kind of edgelord Godzilla, like giant evil monsters blowing up cities, it's nice to know that not every monster is out to kill us, that there's some monsters who are relatively peaceful, but they're big fellows who will still knock a building over if they don't look out. So
kind of like Raf Enshohma.
Yes, exactly. Why am I so big?
Is the big fella.
Oh no! How did this happen? He accidentally ate a radioactive cheese ball. Oh, I'm like dressed up like in a top hat and like Charlie Chap, no, Laurel and Hardy, like the fat guy from Laurel and Hardy. It was yes. So thank you very much. So. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's like, I think the movie has grown on you. The movie's going to grow a little bit on me. I might actually see more flaws with it upon second viewing, because sometimes it's kind of hard. I do get a little bored in the third act. Do you think the movie overextends itself with all the monster fight scenes that go on throughout it?
I think I just keep in our conversations, I call back to the joke you made in your Crimson Weirdo thing. It's the Varan effect. There's so much going on that I do find myself, it has a numbing quality, and I find myself getting bored by how fast everything is going.
Right.
Because I know there's never a stop and take a. Well, I guess you could kind of consider when they find Godzilla's home, that's a slower moment.
Yeah, it is, and it's generally awe-inspiring. What sucks is it disappoints me that the reveal of the ancient underwater city where Godzilla lives, or Atlantis, if you will. It's like, that's the thing that's the make it or break it moment for a lot of like mainstream moviegoers, and from my experiences, that's when a lot of people just check out. It's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to get a refill of my drink. It's like, but I love the idea that, they go full in because
now that I think about it, yeah. Like if I had to really picture myself in the theater, that's when a lot of people would be like, leaving to come back is when they'd find his little home and be shining lights on little etching and everything.
all it was missing was like a bunch of mermaids saying hello or something.
Just like a big Godzilla sign that says, "Hey, welcome y'all," or something.
Welcome to my home. Oh god, it reminds me of like an episode of Doug where Doug thinks this tourist trap featuring It is going to be cool, and he goes to a cave to hang out with this giant happy monster, and turns out it's just a rotten potato in a glass shelf.
I would have. I'm not a big fan of all this fan. I think the fan servicey thing stuff in the movie goes a little too too flippantly. But
yeah, Simca agrees with you.
I would have at least given it the benefit of the doubt if they named it Utopia.
Yeah. And there's like a giant skeleton of like the toga guy played by oh man, what's his name? From with like a huge his Megalon Tatara or something.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about him the other day.
Yeah. Robert Doohan, I think his name. No, that's the guy from Star Trek.
No. James Doohan.
James Doohan. All right. Robert Dunham. Okay, that's the name I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So
yeah.
Warrior King says Rodan. Jeter has fallen. Now I, Rodan, shall lead. I'm stupid.
Yeah, I know that's the big thing. That's the plot point, but I don't think I would have liked Rodan better if he didn't form an allegiance.
Yeah,
or if he came to his senses at the end.
Yeah,
and I did get a Godzilla dick drop. That pissed me off. When Ghidorah dropped him, he should have landed on his penis on a skyscraper.
Right.
Have sold it for me.
Right. It's fun. It's funny. I'm like looking at an image right now that has like Rodan holding Godzilla right now.
Yeah.
Oh god. Godzilla got his crotch area destroyed multiple times in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Yeah, getting zapped and dropped and
yeah, exactly. Thank goodness Godzilla doesn't have any noticeable genitalia. So he's
I don't know. They made that joke, the Michael Bay-esque joke of this will be the one with the blurred out kaiju genitalia. The whole
yeah, that was the only joke that is as cute as it was to see the Mutos again. And that scene kind of reference, it kind of undermined. Like I thought one of the best scenes from 2014 has turned into a silly joke.
Even if I like the movie, there are still going to be parts where it's just face palmy for me. Like it's an awkward movie at times. I think like great actors and everything, but some things are just delivered awkwardly. Like after delivers her little message, the Z Zhang's character. I don't remember. Dr. Chen, was that it?
Yes.
Yeah, she just goes, that bitch. That's a weird movie. It feels like I think I described this to you also in one of our earlier talks about it. It feels like the dialogue in the movie feels like dubbed translated dialogue.
They're getting pissed off now.
They're getting pissed off. I don't care. I don't know what's happening to our planet.
Mothra. Oh god, the Heisei films. So yeah, but no, I do hope that the backlash of this movie not doing as well as Warner Brothers wanted it to do. Yeah. I hope it doesn't affect Godzilla vs. Kong too badly, because again, I don't want this MonsterVerse franchise to suffer as terribly as the DC extended universe.
And I don't like to be cynical, but like people who really love the movie and want it to do well, when that thing is brought up, they like to bring up, oh well, the executive from Warner or Legendary said that they're okay with how it happened. Well, what do you think they're gonna say? Of course that's a PR thing. They're gonna say, oh well, we still have high hopes and everything. What do you think they're gonna say? Oh shit, we're losing a lot of money. We haven't even made 400 million yet.
400 million was supposed to be the safety point. We're fraud.
The fact that some anonymous person from Legendary or Warner Brothers said that, oh, we're okay, that means nothing to me. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like it losing money doesn't affect won't in the end affect my opinion on the movie at all. Because
Yeah.
my favorite Godzilla movies were not financial successes. You know, that has no
Yeah.
merit on my enjoyment of
Yeah.
the movie, how well
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I'm enjoying this movie immensely. It's like the only thing that scares me is that Warner Brothers is going to panic and then do a whole DC extended universe, and we're never going to see Godzilla versus Kong in its original form because they're going to like throw in like a bunch of pop music and Harley Quinn showing off her butt.
Did you see my butt, Mr. J?
Have you seen my butt? To quote Mystery Science Theater. Oh my goodness. So, and this is coming from somebody who enjoys Margot Robbie's butt.
yeah.
I'm sorry. So, but
Leonardo DiCaprio snorted cocaine off that butt in the
oh, good for him. So, Leonardo DiCaprio also has a very good butt too. So.
Yeah, I will not.
That's why the bear attacked him.
Give me your butt.
Oh no. Oh my
Anyway,
goodness.
my butt.
Oh my butt. Godzilla. Oh my butt.
Anyway,
Anyways, that would be the best movie in the world if King Ghidorah just like destroy all monsters, but King Ghidorah just uses his lightning powers to get everybody in the butt, and he lasts longer by like 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, that would have put butts in seats.
Right.
Anyway,
Baragon, Manda, and Varan are
serious
just
talk, Raf. This
yeah,
movie.
serious talk. Okay, sorry about that.
Enough with the butt stuff. Let's talk about
Doing the butt.
enough with the butt stuff. That's the first time I've ever said that in my life.
Okay.
But Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Ultimately I've enjoyed it very much. I just hope that its underperformance doesn't ruin Kong versus Godzilla versus Kong. And I think the movie might find a second win in like home video. Like people will re-rent the movie and then realize, hey, that was a lot more fun than I expected. I'm talking about mainstream audiences, but here's the great, like we said earlier, here's the great thing about the Godzilla franchise. If you don't like this one or you're not happy with the way this one came out, just wait a little longer and boom, you'll have another one.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, with you had Shin Godzilla and an anime trilogy to go through, but hey, it worked out.
I didn't watch. I ducked out after the first anime thing, Raf.
As much as I enjoyed the second entry in that trilogy, yeah, it was incredibly underwhelming, and it's definitely going to be a blemish onto the Godzilla franchise, because even a bad Godzilla movie is still a billion times more interesting and well done than other franchises.
A bad Gamera movie?
Yeah, oh god, and there are some bad Gamera movies. We spent like 4 months riffing a bad Gamera movie,
and we're gonna spend we've spent another 4 months getting ready to riff another.
Oh my god, yeah, that's right. We got Jigger coming up, so Jiga coming up.
Jiga,
yeah. Jiga.
Urkel must be destroyed.
Oh my goodness, but that's still gonna be a lot of fun, and Mark and Cam are looking forward to finally get to play bigger roles in the upcoming episode if we decide not to edit them in post or something. Yeah, there we go. So I think we've talked well enough. Like, how long have we done?
4 hours.
Yeah, and I think we can end the conversation here. So I want to thank the 6 people who stuck with us this long. Sorry we didn't really much answer questions and everything, but I will read this one last bit from Warrior King. Whose birthday is tomorrow, by the way. My only nitpick with King of the Monsters was the one odd Muto at the end kneeling before Godzilla. Shouldn't the big G have killed it on sight? I guess it's possible that Boss Muto, which is a fan name I guess he created from, was a non-parasitic Muto. I don't know. I think because that last Muto... Well, first off, I'm happy that they were smart enough to like reuse an existing monster. That Muto being there is the equivalent of Gorosaurus being brought out of storage for Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah.
But at the same time, considering everything we learned about the Mutos and the Godzilla Aftershock tie-in comic, yeah, Godzilla should have been like, hey, what are you doing here? And just like blasted her away or something.
Yeah.
So, but I guess Godzilla can tolerate a single Muto as long as there's not a second Muto or something. It's like a Jedi Sith Lord or some bullshit like that. BS like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do have to ask you before we close this. Okay, I do like my personal hope is that they continue with Godzilla vs. Kong, and we do see it in 2020. It's not heavily altered or ruined because, you know, they're terrified by the way this movie goes. But
I just saw some. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I just saw something on Facebook from 3 hours ago. Warner Brothers will remain firm, and Godzilla vs. Kong will continue with its initial premiere date, March 11th, 2020.
yes, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait another like year just to see this movie.
Yeah.
And you know what? In these Godzilla movies, Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island were released in non-summer months, and they did fairly well.
Mhm.
I and not only that, but I think audiences are pretty much giant monstered out. I think, like, here's the interesting thing. I was thinking about it. First off, the summer started with Avenger Endgame, and I think they were more than happy with that movie, and that's why. And it's not just Godzilla, but a lot of summer movies have been kind of failing this summer. It's like the poor box office of Dark Phoenix, and I hate to say it, usual moviegoers will eat up that X-Men crap like tofu covered in ketchup, for lack of a better term. So, but yeah, I think they're also kind of giant monstered out because 2018 was an insane year for giant monster entertainment, and in the big screen too. You had Rampage, you had Pacific Rim Uprising, you had The Meg, you had all these different, like Jurassic Park, The Fallen Kingdom. It's like, I think Bumblebee came out last year too, and I guess that's on the fringes of giant monster entertainment. So yeah, I think audiences may have been bored of giant monsters, but I'm happy to hear. Now I'm getting hiccups because I'm so happy. I'm happy to hear that I don't have to wait forever for the
Supposedly,
next.
I will recheck. I'll double check it, but I'll see if
Yeah.
it's confirmed elsewhere. But
Right. So I guess Warner Brothers is like, let's just throw the thing out and deal with it. But here's my final question for you before we start to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, I'm personally good if we just get these 4 movies in the MonsterVerse and we don't see another MonsterVerse movie ever again? Because it's been a solid run. It gave us Kong Skull Island. I love that movie. I think that's the best of the 3 MonsterVerse movies so far. It disappoints me that there's so many Godzilla fans that have yet to see that movie just out of a bias against Kong, but that's another story. But would you want the MonsterVerse to continue with a better under this, or do you think it's good after 4?
I think it's perfectly fine after 4. I mean, you know, if of course, you know, if they're still making them and they're good, I'd like to see more. But it really all depends on how this next movie comes about.
Yeah.
It's all banking on this one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like there's Godzilla and King Kong right there in this image, looking apprehensive about their future.
I don't know, man.
Should I break the building? You think they'll love us more? I don't know. Right. This also could like tie into you and me, like after this 4-hour conversation. It's like there's me as Kong, like I can go on another 4 hours. How about you? And you're like, no, just end it.
It's over.
Yeah. So now, and finally, with that says, do you have any faith in Toho's so-called World of Godzilla plans, or you think that's a crap show in the waiting?
Yes.
Or boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I don't.
So you're telling me that Toho, after they're done with this MonsterVerse license, are going to take back Godzilla for a couple of years, inspired by the success of Shin Godzilla. They're going to make their own series of Godzilla movies, both indirectly and connected with Godzilla in it, sort of like the Showa era, but probably not as good, and then expect the same financial and box office and critical favor they got with Shin Godzilla and be as successful, if not one up the MonsterVerse?
Have dramatic music. Dun 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 dun. Yes. Dun, 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 dun.
All right. Operation World of Godzilla. Dun,
Ba,
dun,
ba,
dun,
ba,
dun,
ba, 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 da, 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 da.
And it's like the Atragon shows up like covered in like the Toho logo. It's like, here we go again.
Just Andre screams and then falls over dead on the ground looking up.
I can die happy.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to know more. I have to know more about what they're planning because now everything as it stands, everything's very vague.
Yeah.
For me to even, wager a guess.
Yeah, and even knowing, here's my thoughts about the world of Godzilla. First off, Toho being ambitious has rarely offered any good results.
Yeah.
Like, let me point you to the 1982 disaster movie Virus, which was a disaster. Like, I know it's a good movie by many accounts, but at the same time, it did not do well in theaters, at least here in America. But here, and of course, there was Gunhead and Toho's plans to hit the international market with that movie. Oh God!
Yeah.
But here's the thing: like from what they're saying, Toho wants to kind of return to the Showa era of the Japanese monster movies, where you have all these different movies that are both unconnected but also connected at the same time. Literally, a world of Godzilla. But sadly, Toho. I don't trust Toho because they had big plans for the Millennium era Godzilla movies, but they constantly double guess themselves in order to kind of reach audience favor. That's why GMK, as much as I love that movie, the presence of Mothra and King Ghidorah feels a little suspect, and it is because they wanted to sell more. They want to get more butts in the seats, Brayton.
Yeah.
It's all about the butts, all about that base.
Well, here's what I think, and I know this is very gimmicky, and maybe it's just me coming at it from a standpoint or a fan standpoint. But if the legendary thing continues and they want to do their own thing, it's difficult because I don't know if the talent is still there to do it on a big scale. Well, I'm sure it is. I take that back. I'm sure it is. If it's just a matter of them investing the time into it.
Yeah.
I think really the best thing for them to do to separate themselves and to get people to watch it. Just do a suit. Just do practical effects.
Yeah.
Don't try to push yourself in the Shin Gojira direction so much. Like I don't think the fact of if people won't see it if it's a man in a suit. I don't think that's as big a deal as some people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's such an alienating thing. That if people won't come and see it if it's just a man in a rubber suit.
Right.
I think they should go for that. I think that's what makes their movies unique. Instead of just trying to on the face trying to say, oh, we're not going to bow down to Hollywood, but still trying to do the same CGI motion capture techniques and it failing pretty miserably.
Yeah, I was more than okay with the special effects in Shin Godzilla, but I do agree maybe returning to monster suits, but still like merging them with CGI.
Well, improve. You can don't CGI over like completely them, but can improve things to make the suits more expressive and stuff.
Yeah. No, combine the methods like they do with like the better Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah,
like I love how that mixed old school effects with newer CGI, and it looked great. And I think a lot of the Millennium era Godzilla movies did similar things. I just want them to take it to a more extreme level. Or if you are going to do CGI monsters, definitely have some practical effects to back it up. Because I think Shin Godzilla would have been better had they used that giant puppet and maybe altered it a bit with the CGI instead of relying too much on CGI. Yeah. So, but I'm more forgiving of Shin Godzilla than you are. So, and that's another one that's grown on me. But another thing I want the world of Godzilla to be like is to be more experimental and imaginative with their scripts. Like, what is it? Like I know in our heads we're thinking of all these cool Godzilla ideas that Toho is obviously not going to do. Like, this is something that's never going to happen, so I might as well share it. But if I was asked, hey, you want to make a bizarre entry into the world of Godzilla? Can I make a horror comedy about a baby Baragon who's raised by these two kids? And it starts off as E.T., but then it goes horribly wrong as the bigger the monster gets.
Get out.
Yeah. Cut to me being thrown out the window.
And stay out.
Okay, can I do a 1970s action movie starring Jet Jaguar?
I just fire guns upon you.
Okay, I get the point.
I have so many ideas.
And I escape into the waiting room and I get water from the water cooler. Well, that was rude. And when I drink it, it just comes out of me cartoonishly. It's But yeah, obviously, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, you don't like that idea. But that's what I would love to do, like do a bunch of like bizarre sci-fi movies that connect to each other, bring back some classic Toho monsters, create some new ones while you're at it. But I doubt Toho is going to be that imaginative or that bold with their ideas. So although with that says, if I was ever given the chance, I would still like to do a horror comedy starring Baragon. So unless at this point everyone prefers Happy Baragon from GMK.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Toho wants to make money.
Oh, come on. It's like we'll have so many dead horses by the third act. It will be horrifying.
Yeah.
So it's like just chicken heads falling from the sky left and right. Paragon, don't you dare.
You may be jumping the shark with the ideas here, Raf.
Right. Ooh, Godzilla versus the Meg.
I would watch that.
No, you want it. All right, but yeah, here's the thing. It's like we've gotten so many giant monster movies in the last couple of years, and a lot of them I've enjoyed immensely. That, yeah, it's if they continue making more MonsterVerse movies, great. It's like I wouldn't mind them like remaking some classic American monsters. Like I think them would make a really good remake. If it's like Starship Troopers, but a little more serious-minded and in the real world, I think that would be great. Maybe less violent, just to kind of make it less extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I kind of enjoyed some of the dark humor in Starship Troopers, but other than that, yeah, I think if we just end with Kong versus Godzilla, we're good, we're happy. So yeah. So and who knows what the world of Godzilla will be like. It cut to like 5 years later, we're like in a theater together, and we're watching the Baragon movie. I'm like, this is amazing, and you're like, my eyes. Okay, so on that note, is there any last things you want to plug or say before we go?
Not really. It just it was fun just venting for 4 hours.
And you know what's even more disturbing? I didn't get a chance to share all my Godzilla stories, or else we've been here for 6 hours.
No.
Oh, I got more. Here it comes.
Yeah, well, our next podcast will be going in depth reviewing every single one for a whole 30-hour special.
Oh, let's. Well, we got tons of other subjects. We could, I'm always up to talking about
Gamera memories. I remembered when I watched Gamera versus Virus 20 times.
Okay. I'll do you one better. I watched Gamera the Brave 20 times.
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamera?
I think everyone's been asking that question since the creation of Gamera. Okay, so I want to thank everybody in the chat section who's endured this conversation. I want to thank you, Brayton. This was right off the bat. This was one of the best live streams I ever did. I'm so glad we didn't do this as a podcast, and just the two of us. Like, as much as I enjoy live stream of consciousness, you did bring up a good point. It's definitely a live stream of consciousness.
Well, this was 2 at points, but I think we stayed on target for the most part.
Yeah. So before we go, though, I want to talk about the most obscure Godzilla monsters ever made. The Dracula aliens.
No!
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, the dreaded monster Shukra!
Is the monster Shukra going to be see-through?
I think it stinks.
Too bad. We really had something there. You hardened bitch. What was that? Oh God. All right. So thank you, everybody, and say good night, Brayton.
Good night, Brayton.
There we go. Bye.